Happy hump day, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 at 92.1 FM. Glad to have you with us on a show sponsored by our good friends down at Big Willie's, 1717 South Main. If you have a family party you want to schedule and maybe you don't have the space in your house or you just don't want to have to clean up, Big Willie's can take care of you. A corporate event that you need a location for, Big Willie's can take care of you. You got the upstairs VIP room they're willing to rent out. And if you just want to head down to watch, I don't know, tonight's Utah Mammoth game, Utah Jazz games, maybe you're like, I don't necessarily have the Apple TV package necessary for me to catch up on everything RSL related. Big Willie's can help you out. 1717 South Main, incredible food, incredible staff, incredible service. And right now, if you go down there and you mention you heard about it on the Sean O'Connell Show, they're going to put your name into a raffle for a pair of Utah Mammoth tickets. 8th row against the Detroit Red Wings on February 4th. All you have to do is show up and say, hey, I heard about it on the Sean O'Connell Show. They'll draw out your name, and you get to attend on their personal tickets. Patrick and Michelle, the owner-proprietor operators of Big Willie's, they're going to take you out. Friends of mine, great people, great fun. You're going to like it. All right. So, the Big 12 football schedule is out. Utah fans, if you're looking for a silver lining, if you're looking for a little bit of a salve on your wounds, you feel jaded, you feel left behind, you feel saddened by the departure of he who shall not be named, you feel like, oh, how could he undermine the staff and how could he take away the best players, the best rising young players on this team? How dare he? If you're looking for something that can make you feel better about your outlook for next year, if you need that, I don't need that. If you need that, well, this schedule is, I think, going to give it to you. At least on some front. Utah football starts the season week 1 at home against Idaho. Then it's hosting an SEC team that is going to give you an SEC win. Check the box. Arkansas is going to come in and you're going to beat up the Razorbacks. Utah State, week 3. Iowa State, your first conference game, your first away game, coincide with one another in week 4. Then your only bye of the season comes in week 5. Home against Kansas, on the road against Colorado, home against Houston. I think Houston's going to be pretty good next year, but we're looking at a situation there where it's win, 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 probably a good chance for a win, bye week, win, win, and now you get into an a home game with Houston where, all right, might be getting a little bit tougher. I think Cincinnati's going to have a hard time next year. You're on the road at Cincinnati. You get BYU at home in week 10. And this is where I have to get on a soapbox that all of you are probably sick of hearing me get on. This is one of the best rivalries in all of college football in a time when college football has abused rivalries, cast them aside, decided they don't care about the history. This game is a week 10 game. It is the best surviving rivalry in the Big 12 Conference. There is no more bedlam. There is no more Red River shootout. This is the best rivalry that the Big 12 Conference can put forth as a showcase. Look what we've got here. Look at this incredible game. Look at these two teams. Look at this venom. Look at this cultural importance. BYU, Utah, one of the prettiest uniform games, for hell's sake. Just visually, it's appealing. Look at what we've got here in the Big 12. One of these great rivalries, and there's this religious undertone to it. And there's all this, like, back and forth, players going and staff going back and forth, and this guy worked there, and that guy worked here, and this guy graduated from there and was an all-conference player here. And again, the Big 12 Conference, for all of their blow and bluster about, hey, man, we're going to make sure that we preserve the history and we preserve these rivalries and we care, and BYU Utah is going to be one of them. You're not treating it like a massive rivalry game. You're not treating it like it's your best rivalry game. You're not putting it on rivalry weekend. How many people had to say Week 12, Week 13 in the 2025 season? Can you imagine if this game was being played this week with the stakes, a trip to the conference championship game on the line? Can you imagine how huge that game would have been? College game day would have been here. Big noon kickoff would have been here. I guess that happened anyway for the rivalry game. But put it at the end of the season where it belongs. Brett Yormark, go over your calendar, go over your schedule, and say, big, fat circle, BYU, Utah, best game we've got on the slate. Yeah, Arizona State and Arizona are both going to be pretty good this year. The Territorial Cup is going to be a good rivalry game this year. Let's make sure we feature that one too. Oh, wait. We did. We put that in Week 13. We treated that like an in-state rivalry game. We put it on rivalry weekend. We did that for you. Isn't that nice? Arizona State and Arizona, your Heritage Territorial Cup rivalry game is being treated like that. Congratulations to you. Little head nod. Farmageddon is being played on rivalry weekend. Iowa State, Kansas State, which had to flip-flop its position. They played that one in Dublin last year, so you better put it in rivalry weekend this year. And then beyond that, you got nothing. Is TCU Texas Tech a big in-state rivalry? I thought that was more of a Baylor Texas Tech thing.
Or Baylor TCU even. It seems to be a bigger deal because those are both religious institutions too, and they're somewhat close to each other, Waco and Fort Worth.
The storied rivalry game you get to play Week 13 when everyone else is squaring off against their in-state rival, against their hated, I cannot stand these guys. Oh, it's the Civil War game. Oh, it's the Apple Cup. Guess what you're doing? You're playing, well, it's a mountain rivalry, okay? It's not a geographical rivalry. It's a topographical rivalry game, okay? Utah Mountains against the Mountaineers of West Virginia.
Wasatch versus Appalachian. Let's go.
The biggest topographic rivalry in the country, the Utes versus the Mountaineers.
Hey, do you want Learfield guy voice? It's the rumble in the mountains.
It's not in the rumble in the Rockies. It's the rumble in they both have mountain ranges, okay? I know. The game's got to be played no matter what, whether it's in Week 10 or it's in Week 13. It's still the most important date on your sports calendar. There is a case to be made that when you put it by itself on the National College Football slate, there's no possibility for that in-state rivalry game to be washed under by the other big rivalries that happen around the country. You don't want it to get outshined by some of the other big rivalries that are played in college football. But here's the thing. A lot of those are going away. Notre Dame USC ain't played the final week of the season. You're finding that these games of importance culturally, competitively, from a conference standpoint in the Big 12, you absolutely need this game, and you need it to be showcased. Instead of capitulating and surrendering and saying, we can't compete with the big time rivalries, the best ones. We can't. This is no Ohio State, Michigan. You can't put it on the same weekend that those guys are playing. Just find a different time slot and let's roll. People around the country aren't going to watch it if the teams aren't good anyway. Assume that your conference needs to feature its biggest rivalry games on rivalry weekend and put the best one there is on that weekend. BYU, Utah is going to be played Week 10. But back to the way too early prognostications. No matter how much inconsistency you have, no matter how many growing pains and changes you've got with Morgan Scalley taking over as head coach for the first time, Idaho, you win that game. Arkansas, you win that game. Utah State, it's honestly, it's probably going to be a little bit tougher than you want it to be, and we'll see how the transfers that Utah State gets net out. While nobody else can put their name in the transfer portal right now, you will find schools like Utah State getting more of the last resort type transfers. Guys who, we've all played musical chairs, right? Guys who are really enthusiastic and they think that they're going to find a seat, and then they're like, oh, wait a second. Utah didn't want me. BYU didn't want me. I thought Arizona and Arizona State were going to be in on me. I thought Colorado would be a nice little fallback for me. It's not there. Utah State is the kind of program that some of those guys who are talented but maybe unproven, they end up. So we'll see what that roster ends up looking like. Last year they had 65, 70 new guys on the Utah State roster? It was some insane number. This year won't be quite like that because Broncos got a little more consistency, but they have plenty of people moving on. So Utah State, and they're going to give you their best. But that's at Rice-Echo Stadium. So now, again, penciling it in way too early, you're a 3-0 team. You win at Iowa State. They're trying to figure things out. That's a new coaching staff. That's a roster with a ton of turnover, even more than what you've got. Now you're 4-0 heading into your bye week. You're feeling pretty good. All right? At that point, Devin Dampier has had the hype conversation. Matt Leinart has said that's a Heisman guy again. Bird Ficklin has had the hype conversation from RG3. They've said, man, I want to see this guy every single week. So there's some optimism around the team. You go into the bye week. You lick the wounds. You get the bumps and bruises out of the way. You say, all right, let's buckle down for a conference schedule. Kansas? Pfft. Yeah, right, Jayhawks. The only thing that made you good these last few years is gone, and you never took advantage of having Jalen Daniels as your quarterback. Sorry, Kansas. Colorado, the Isaac Wilson game. You got that one on the road, okay? You'll play fine at Boulder. Now we're talking about a 6-0 Utah team? Come on, baby.
Well, what a way to ramp up that rivalry, by the way. Isaac Wilson revenge game from the sideline wearing the orange vest, no doubt.
We will see.
Sorry, maybe he won't be.
We will see what Dion can, because Jordan Seaton is gone. He had a couple of holdovers from his really, really talented roster where he had the Heisman Trophy winner Travis Hunter, and he had his own son Shador, and he had his own son Shiloh, who, man, decent enough player, not exactly the easiest personality to deal with. But
hey, at least he didn't big time you at Big 12 media days. He actually talked to you.
We tricked him into it. we tricked Shiloh into talking with us. He didn't want to, but we tricked him into it by talking boxing.
Yeah.
We're going to find out a lot about Dion and his staff based on the 2026 Big 12 football, the 2026 football season in general, but the 2026 Big 12 slate, because they've got Georgia Tech, that's a loss. They've got Weber State, they've scheduled that as a win, but yikes. They've got Northwestern. Who knows what Northwestern is next year?
Hey, who's the new head coach there? The only thing I can think of is Chip Kelly, the OC. Anyway, they've got coaching changes to the coaching staff, at least. We'll see how that...
David Braun is the head coach.
So Braun's still the head coach. Okay, so the only thing that did change, that's why all I can think of is Chip Kelly, was the new OC. And we'll see if that makes them much better. Maybe they're the next Indiana OC, worst to first.
Yes. Yep, that's okay. That feels likely. That feels like something that's a possibility.
Yeah.
No, but so Colorado's going to start with Georgia Tech, Weber State, Northwestern. Then they've got a road game at Baylor. Then they're going to get demolished by Texas Tech, and then they'll have a Week 6 bye week. So they have the bye ahead of the Utah game. But I'm not a believer in Colorado, because when they don't have the recruiting successes, the guys that Dion was able to bring in with him from his FCS experience, now everyone's kind of like, we know what this is at Colorado. We know what this is. So I'm getting way ahead of myself here, but we're talking about what should be a pretty strong start to the Morgan Scalley era. He's already 1-0 as the head coach after that very impressive showing in the bowl game. So we might be seeing a Morgan Scalley sitting here when it gets into the meat of the schedule at 6-0, 7-0. Houston's a tough out. Cincinnati, I think, is a win for you. BYU at home, it's a rivalry game. BYU is going to have, all right, bear with me saying this, Utah fans. BYU is going to have the more proven roster next year. Once we get to week 10, when that game is played, we'll know a lot more about both teams. But starting the year, BYU is going to be ranked higher. They're going to be projected to be more successful. If that team stays healthy, that is a really good BYU football team that is incredibly well coached. They lost Jay Hill, which is a massive, massive loss, but they kept Chad Kaha'a. They kept Kelly Papinga. They kept Falatau Satawala. They kept Gary Anderson. They kept a lot of the things that made them good. Arizona, they're going to be a good team next year. Arizona's going to be good. TCU's always talented. West Virginia at home in the topographical rivalry game to finish out the season. The schedule is doing you favors, Utah fans. You've got no Texas Tech. You've got no Arizona State. You're dodging two of the most talented rosters in the conference with the scheduling here. No Texas Tech obviously being the most important of those. Interestingly enough, Texas Tech, you want to talk about things working out nicely for them from a scheduling standpoint. Texas Tech is probably going to be flirting with an undefeated regular season next year again. Now, Arizona State was the thing that took that away from them. They've got Arizona State at home this year. Arizona State does not have quite the roster they had last year, at least in my opinion. Again, we'll see, because you got to watch how the transfers in and out affect both of these rosters. But Texas Tech does not play Utah, does not play BYU this year. Their toughest games for a reloaded, retooled Texas Tech Red Raiders team that loses a ton but has a ton of money to replace. Their toughest games are Houston. That's at home for them. They've got Arizona State, again, at home. They've got Arizona at home. They've got no tough road games at all, Texas Tech. And they passed the test on their road games coming to Rice-Echo Stadium and looking impressive. They passed the test last year in the road games. Texas Tech has not one tough road game on the season. Oregon State, Colorado, Cincinnati, Oklahoma State, I guess Baylor, kind of. They got DJ Lagway. Dave Aranda, in a different year, probably would have been fired. Probably would have been on the hot seat. And if the cycle wasn't already so crazy and there weren't so many high-value job openings that Baylor knew they probably couldn't compete with, I think Dave Aranda might not be the head coach at Baylor going in. And we'd be talking about a completely different picture here. So Texas Tech with a friendly schedule, Utah with a friendly schedule, and BYU with a pretty friendly schedule. They've got Arizona at home. They've got an early bye week, week 4, which means, man, for BYU, it goes after their bye week, TCU on the road. That's a tough game. Iowa State at home. Notre Dame at home. That's a really, really tough game. UCF on the road. Arizona State at home. We'll see how difficult that is. On the road at Utah. Home against Baylor. On the road against Kansas. And BYU, again, wow. What a wonderful rivalry game to close it all out with, ladies and gentlemen. BYU's got Cincinnati to finish out their season at home. Yikes. So right now, based on paper and on scheduling alone, I'm looking at TCU having a pretty good schedule. They've got North Carolina in Dublin to start the year. Then they've got a bye week right after that. So week 0, they're playing. They should be able to beat North Carolina. Week 1, they've got a bye. What is this? They got Grambling in week 3. or excuse me, week 2, I guess, their third week, week 2. They got Arkansas State. Those are obviously designed wins for TCU. UCF on the road, win. BYU at home. Look, I'm still going to give the edge to BYU, but that's a tough out for the Cougs. Then they've got another bye week before they head into the meat of the schedule. Baylor, West Virginia, Kansas, Arizona, Kansas State, Utah, Texas Tech. TCU is going to be one of the more talented teams in the conference this year, but they've got kind of a nightmare of a schedule. Now, they get both BYU and Utah at home, but they finish on the road against Texas Tech. They've got Arizona on the road. Arizona finished this season ranked. They like the transfer class that they're bringing in. They're a well-coached team. That was one of those squads you had to be a little bit patient with. You look at just the paper of this schedule release. Texas Tech on top. Utah with the second easiest schedule, I think, in the whole conference, and I think a talented enough team to take advantage of that. They've got it easier than Arizona does. I think Arizona, TCU, Arizona State are all slotted right into that same category as far as talent goes. And Houston is a potential, like, snake in the grass type team, but they've got tough road games against Texas Tech early, Utah right in the middle of the season. They finish with Baylor at home. Houston, I'll give their schedule like a B in terms of its difficulty. If you're a Ute fan looking for something to inject a little optimism into your 2026 outlook, look no further than the Big 12 football schedule release. My only complaint with it, my only gripe with it, is that you don't get BYU in the rivalry weekend. That's just something we're going to have to get used to. Brett Yormark does not respect this rivalry enough, or doesn't care about this rivalry enough, or he just has the opinion that it's better placed in week 10 when there are fewer feature games and it can kind of stand alone as the best game of that weekend. And I suppose there's a case to be made for that. But the only other gripe that you could possibly have as a Utah fan is that there's just nothing really sexy on your schedule besides that rivalry game, besides the Holy War. Like your home tickets, your season ticket package is Idaho, Arkansas, Utah State, Kansas, Houston, BYU, and West Virginia. I am the worst probably in the whole business at this, pining for the bygone days of having a loaded Pac-12 schedule. I get to go watch Oregon, Washington, UCLA, and Arizona State all in the same year at Rice-Eccles Stadium. That's amazing. This year, you get Idaho, Arkansas, Utah State, Kansas, Houston, BYU, and West Virginia. Now, I guess the best part of that is win, 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 probable win, coin toss, win. So your home slate is at least going to be you watching this team play well and win football games. There was some pain in that Texas Tech home game for people last year. You won't experience that early in the season at Rice-Eccles Stadium in 2026. There's some benefit to it. The schedule is out, and Utah's slate looks like it is a very, very welcoming path for the beginning of the Morgan Scalley era. It's the first time it gets dicey at all is week 4, and I don't think Iowa State's going to be that great. You got until week 8 when we're doing, I don't know, can you win this game? You get all the way until week 8 to figure out what you have as a team. Are they buying into the culture? Have you kept this team healthy before you really get into games where it's just like, man, that's a tough one. I don't know if you can win that game. You have all the way until week 8, Utah fans. So my gripe, I'm going to set it aside, okay? I already spoke my piece on where I think this BYU rivalry belongs. But the rest of it is, hey, you should be a really good team next year. You're going to be able to stack 7 wins at least in the first 8 weeks. You're going to be a top 25 team probably to start the season. You're right in that 23 to 25 range, right? You start the season 3-0. Now you're number 21. Then you get to 4-0. Now you're number 20. Then you get to 5-0 after the bye week. Now you're flirting with a top 20 team. And you have an opportunity with that Week 10 game. BYU is going to be a top 10 team in the country at that point. They're going to be ranked number 8, and you're going to host them, and you're going to be number 20. That's a college game day appearance. That's a big noon kickoff type game. That's a showcase opportunity for the uniforms, for the state, for the campus, and most importantly for Morgan Scalley's new staff and an offense that we hope is taking advantage of the presence of Devin Dampier and Bird Ficklin and Wayshawn Parker and a bunch of transfers. And by the way, the on paper best wide receiving core that you've had in the last 7 to 10 years. From a returning production standpoint, we were wringing our hands and lamenting, oh my gosh, you've got 100 total yards coming back in your wide receiving core. Not this year. Now, in a Utah uniform, not a lot of yardage. However, guys that have been productive elsewhere, even the Noah Benny thing is a good addition there. Now you've got 2 hyper-athletic, kind of hybrid tight end type bodies to use. I mean, Kevin McGivern, I think, is a good coordinator. There's no excuse from a talent standpoint as to why Kevin McGivern on the edges, on the perimeter, should not have what he needs. We will find out a lot when we start getting into spring ball and you start talking about, especially these first few games, what that offensive line looks like, because what a tough unit to replace. 5 starters, all of whom should get professional opportunities, 2 of them, as all of you know, projected first-round draft picks. That's going to be a really, really hard thing. The number 2 rushing offense in the country next year, spoiler alert, ain't going to be the University of Utah because they don't have quite that on the offensive line. But I look at this talent, that schedule, a new coaching staff who I'm high on, but I do expect some growing pains from, and I say, all right, at the very least, we're going to have maybe this is the worst case scenario, because if you had like this really loaded, nasty conference schedule, first conference game again is Texas Tech, then you got BYU 2 weeks later, and you got Arizona on the road like in week 5, maybe we can mitigate our expectations a little bit. Maybe we can temper what we demand of Morgan Scalley in that case. But what we're going to have instead is we're going to have our guy, the Utah man, Morgan Scalley, sprinting off to a 6-0 start, and everyone's going to be like, Voldemort who? Never even heard of him. Don't even care he's gone. Look what we got here. This schedule really lays out nicely for the Utes. James, you're pensive back there.
Oh, nothing to do with the show.
Oh.
Let's just move on.
Apologies. Didn't know.
All good.
All right. In any case, we have a fun show lined up for you today. Kyle Bonagura is going to join us next, talk a little college football, the fallout of a national championship. We might even touch on a little soccer with Kyle Bonagura. We've got tickets to give away. We got a daily dump coming up. We go between the pipes with Adrian Denny. And how about this? Cade Madsen from the Professional Bull Riders is going to join us at 1:30. PBR is coming early in February. And if you have not watched PBR or if you've not been in the building for a PBR event, we've got tickets to give away for that during our topical trivia later today. We're just getting started on a Wednesday. It's the Sean O'Connell Show with plenty to get to. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Small little order of business here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Guys, I'm actually pumped about this. Our friends over at Real Salt Lake, they're doing a self-examination, a little audit, internal audit of the branding with their sports properties now that the ownership group has changed and there's a takeover for the Miller Sports Group and all that stuff. Real Salt Lake has a little survey out there I've retweeted, and you can find your they're asking for your opinion on these things. On your brand awareness, on whether you like the logo, whether you like the name, on your favorite players, all that kind of stuff. And the possibilities here, we'll get into them a little bit later. It feels like this survey makes it feel like a rebrand is potentially in the offing for RSL. This is something that I would cherish, welcome, adore, love, because it always bothered me. Look, we love the players. I've even developed an affection for the colors. It always bothered me that it was just a cheap knockoff of Real Madrid in Salt Lake City. It made no sense to me. Brand something that actually makes sense for us. That might be possible. So go to @RealOC Sports and click the link in the tweet from Miller Sports Entertainment and give some feedback. Only if you agree with me, though. If you cherish the Real Salt Lake brand and you just want them to keep that, we don't need your opinion. All right, that's how this show works. All right, we're lucky enough to welcome Kyle Bonagura to the show. Lots of things to talk about. Maybe he'll have an opinion or two about a potential rebrand for Real Salt Lake. Kyle Bonagura, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing good now. You got me thinking about rebrands in MLS, and I think I come down firmly. Team rebrand is fine. The Real part for me, yeah, a little cheap, a little knockoff-ishy, and there's something that could probably find that's more authentic to the region, to the league, and stop trying to pretend that you're on the Mediterranean somewhere.
I appreciate you agreeing with me, at least verbally, whether that's in your heart or not, because it just never made sense to me. And look, I know that, like, sometimes the brand has to grow with you and on you because of what they do, and they accomplished an MLS Cup. But that was a long time ago now, and new ownership, it's a perfect time. So I don't know. We'll see. But I want to talk a lot of things with Kyle Bonagura from ESPN. The Indiana Hoosiers, I know you've been having these discussions all week already, but this team, this program under Curt Cignetti being a national champion, and now it looks like a power that might be here to stay with plenty of booster support, plenty of NIL support, and with success in the recent transfer portal. And obviously for them, it's not closed yet. I suppose there will be a little attrition from this year's roster, but nothing that we're seeing that's overly meaningful. Is the magic we watched under Curt Cignetti these last couple of years, is it sustainable for Indiana in your mind?
I think so, because I think he's just that good, right? I mean, I keep going back to his opening press conference at Indiana, right? Google me, I win. I mean, it's true. I mean, the levels are different, but everywhere he's been, he's won, and he's won big. And so, I mean, there doesn't appear to be anything like revolutionary that he's doing there, right? They look like a college football team, but he just does it feels like he just does everything a little bit better than everyone else, whether that's roster management, talent identification, scheme in whatever which direction. Football, obviously coaching matters more than any other sport by a wide margin, right? The scheme and building the program, all of that stuff is so dependent on having a coach that's a leader. Look, Alabama was successful for a long time under Nick Saban. It wasn't because it was Alabama. That there were certainly some inherent advantages of being at a blue blood that's helpful, but when you have the best coach, you're going to win a lot of games. And I think right now, Curt Cignetti has made a strong case that he's the best coach in college football, and that's a pretty good place to start. Of course, you need the resources on top of that in this era of college football too, and they have that. They have the largest alumni base of any school in the country, and with the success is going to come more investment. It's going to lead to more people wanting to play there. So yeah, I think they're going to be around for a while, but I would also, stress that, you kind of have to reset every year. in the sport. So I think it's certainly possible that we'll see other programs kind of pop up and drop back. That's just the way of the world now.
There was a long time where Nick Saban Alabama teams were dominant and successful, almost sometimes despite the quarterback play. Like they had stars at every position, seemingly except quarterback in some of those years, and those were national championship contention or national championship winning years in some of those cases. If Indiana is sustainable and it does become something of a dynasty, do you think that it's going to be built through the quarterback down? I mean, obviously this year their guy won the Heisman Trophy, and Fernando Mendoza was incredible, and he made the necessary plays right off the top. Statistically, he wasn't exactly a monster, and they went out and they addressed the need to replace him in the transfer portal. But do you think that Curt Cignetti is going to build from the quarterback down, or could he potentially build his teams where I just need someone who's good enough and we're going to be nasty everywhere else like those Bama teams were?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd really look at it like that. I think you're trying to get the best players you can at every position, right? So like just because they have a good quarterback, that doesn't mean they're not going to pursue. Like I don't think that'll affect their strategy elsewhere. Maybe like in terms of if you're going to be more, if you're going to throw the ball more than run it, maybe that, you know, in terms of how you're going to spread out your money, right, and pay guys and build the roster that way, I suppose. But I think that what's unique about college football now is like without having to sit out when you transfer, not just for grad transfers, but for anyone, you can go out and find a really good quarterback every single year, a guy who's proven at a high level, and you kind of know what you're getting into. You don't have to take a chance on someone who you've developed in your program. I think there will be times where, you know, quarterbacks do come along and like, hey, like we've seen him in practice for a year. We know, we feel really confident that he's going to be the guy to pass the baton to and win with him. But I think it's very case by case, right? If you have a guy who you're confident in, you roll with him. If not, you go out and you get a good player. And I think where the winning really helps, right, is like, look, now they've got two case studies, right? With Rourke last year and with Mendoza this year, they have two transfer quarterbacks who came in and were, you know, they were accomplished to a certain degree other places, but they really, you know, took it to a next level at Indiana. And so now that you have that pitch to sell top talent at quarterback, like I think it's going to be very easy for them to continue to bring guys in through the transfer portal if that's the route they want to keep going.
There's a lot of teams that are going to try to replicate what Indiana has done. I've heard Cignetti kind of joking about, I don't know if I'm going to like have a coach's clinic and tell everyone our secrets. But there's also the idea that, like, you know, you try to copy what teams like Indiana have done, and I don't know how easy that is to do. How replicable, if that's the right way to say it, is Indiana's success elsewhere?
It's a good question. Because I don't really think it's like I said before, I don't think there's anything that they're doing that is like so revolutionary, right? Like there's certain programs you can think about, like Oregon stands out when they had things rolling with Chip Kelly as the offensive coordinator. They were so different offensively that it spawned copycats around college football, right? Because hey, they were having so much success doing this thing that was, you know, wasn't completely new, but it was certainly unique, and there was a lot of new ground that was being plowed there. With Indiana, like when I watch them play, it's not like I'm seeing something that I haven't seen before, right? It's just the little things that they've just executed on. And it's boring to say, but I think that's the reality here. And I think what Cignetti does, and my colleague Adam Rittenberg had a good story about this. It was last week, I think, where he's just really good at identifying talent, right? And that's a skill. And skills aren't something you can necessarily replicate. You can try to put in some more processes to checks and balances of trying to identify guys at lower levels, whether it's, you know, identifying production or measurables or whatever the case may be, right? But if two guys are sitting next to each other and one guy makes one evaluation and the other guy makes a different evaluation, you can't really there's nothing you can do to protect against that, right? Like Cignetti's just very good at it, and that's an edge that's hard to copy. And so, yeah, I think certainly football is a copycat sport, like, you know, all sports are to a certain degree, I guess, but for football more than others. And yeah, there will be programs that draw from them, whether it's schematically, whether it's, you know, how they build the roster. I don't think that's necessarily unique to Indiana. That's just kind of the cyclical nature of the sport.
Kyle Bonagura, our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking all things college football, at least for now. It was a wild college football coaching carousel. Which new head coach is most intriguing in his new spot for you?
Ooh, that's interesting. Well, this is maybe playing to the local market to a degree, I guess. But because I've followed Kyle Whittingham for so long, and then the youth for so long, and have a pretty good understanding of the program, or at least is compared to maybe national reporters, I suppose. But let's see what that looks like at Michigan. I'm really interested to see how they look under Kyle, and kind of what his transition process is like there. That one's the obvious one for me. I think Campbell at Penn State's another one that he had Iowa State's interesting, right? Because they were one of the worst teams in college football for 100 years, and he shows up and they're regularly competing at the top levels of the Big 12. How does that translate at Penn State? This was a program that fired their coach, mid-year after going to the national semifinal the year before. For me, that felt like a bit of an overreaction. And so, what kind of support does he get if they start 4-3, 4-2, something like that? What is the environment in Happy Valley like? So for me, those are the two off the top of my head that are interesting. UCLA is interesting as well, with Chesney coming from James Madison. Tosh Lupoi going back to his alma mater, Cal. I live here in the Bay Area. I'll certainly have my eyes on that one. Stanford. Look, there's just so many. It's such an interesting cycle. We could kind of go down one by one here and spend 3 hours. It's been a lot of fun to track.
Tosh Lupoi to Cal is really interesting for me because he's had this reputation for almost 2 decades now as being this incredible recruiter. And I have a certain affection for the Bay Area myself. Cal's an awesome campus, an awesome school. I guess it's somewhat hard to get into, but I don't think so for football players necessarily. Can he bring the talent that he had at a place like Oregon to Cal? Can you have the success he's had other places at Cal as the head coach? Because if so, I think they could be really, really interesting in that new conference.
Yeah, I think Cal has the infrastructure to be competitive in the SEC. There's no reason for me that they shouldn't. You look at the history of the program; it's it's not too favorable there. But look, I think it really comes down to what do the coffers look like? What do the NIL coffers look like? And Ron Rivera, who's now the GM at Cal, longtime NFL coach, he was when he introduced Tosh, whatever it was over a month ago now. He talked about, hey, we're fully funded on the NIL front, and we're going to be competitive in the ACC when it comes to that. And so if that's the case, I certainly feel like you should be able to build a roster, because I think that's the factor that matters more than anything else. It's one thing before, right? If everyone's just getting offered a scholarship to go to school X or school Y, whatever, and you're just weighing one scholarship versus another, right? There's playing time, there's a whole bunch of factors, but they were really very even. But now, if you have one offer that's $600,000 and one is $100,000, it's pretty easy to make that decision, right? If you're an 18-year-old kid or if you're in the transfer portal. And so I think it doesn't necessarily become about can he recruit guys. I think it's can they build the roster in a way that makes a lot of sense. And so far the transfer class has been very impressive. I think they got 30 guys that are committed to come over or have committed to come over. A lot of interesting names on that list. And so, yeah, it's a whole new world, right? And so the skills don't always translate just because you were able to convince a high school kid 10 years ago doesn't mean, when money wasn't involved. Now it's a different world. And I do think that, he's been around enough programs and is kind of wired in a way to be successful in this type of environment.
Where is Darian Mensah going to be playing next year?
That's fascinating because, I haven't read the lawsuit or anything, but if Duke feels so strongly about what they have in writing with him that they're going to take it to court, it's good. It's an interesting case study because it's very similar to Washington, right? Where the guy's under contract, announces he's going into the portal. They say we're going to fight it. He gets some legal. DeMond Williams of Washington gets some legal advice and kind of cooler heads prevail. He reverses course. whether that happens or not, I don't have any great predictions for you on that, but like, it's certainly going to be a fascinating test case, because if he does push it and fights it to go, whether it's Miami or somewhere else, that's the rumor. The last time I kind of read about it, it really sets an interesting precedent, probably a bad precedent. If you have a contract signed, you probably should be held to that. And once you start getting away from that, then look, it's kind of comical at this point to kind of talk about guardrails in college football. But once you start getting away from signed like contract agreements, then the wheels are completely off. So I don't have any great predictions, but we'll certainly be monitoring that monitoring it closely, like from this point forward, just because I think it sets the precedent for how these sort of things will be enforced in the future.
All right, I want to finish with a question about Utah football, because obviously we're the home of the Utes. Like you said, you covered Kyle Whittingham for a long time. You covered Utah football under that regime for a long time. How do you think the schedule was released today? It's a pretty soft schedule, pretty friendly schedule for Utah, at least on paper. How do you think this Morgan Scalley first year is going to go? They lost some serious talent to the draft and to the transfer portal. How do you think his first run at being a head coach is going to go? Way too early prediction.
Yeah, I think top third in the conference is probably where I'd start things now in January, right? Obviously, a lot to learn still about what that looks like, but yeah, I think part of that is the back half of the Big 12 just isn't very good, right? And so I think like as a starting point, like there's no way that I see them finishing like bottom half of the conference, just because common sense, I guess. But yeah, but BYU has things rolling. Texas Tech has things rolling. Houston's pretty good. Arizona had a bounce back year. Dillingham and Arizona State is certainly capable of getting them going again. And so so somewhere in that, probably behind Texas Tech, in that next tier, probably is where I would start them and take it from there.
Well, we'll see how it all plays out. Only a couple of months till spring ball, and obviously we start the countdown until late August. Kyle Bonagura, appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, OC.
Great stuff from Kyle Bonagura, ESPN college football and soccer insider. We did touch very, very briefly on a potential rebrand for Real Salt Lake. We'll get into that a little bit more next on the Sean O'Connell Show. It's Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. I just put the poll question up, 877-353-0700. I'd like to hear from you on the text line as well, not just on Twitter. But the poll question is very simple. Would you support a rebrand of Real Salt Lake? They were the second major pro sports franchise that we got. And they are, I think, in a lot of people's minds, still number 2 behind the Jazz. I probably would say my individual interest is Mammoth, Jazz, RSL, but that's a personal taste thing.
Yeah, I think Mammoth's overtaken them.
I mean,
but maybe not. I'm not into the RSL. I'm not on the pulse of RSL like some people who are big fans are. So maybe Mammoth is still just a little bit behind, but I think the Mammoth have overtaken them because MLS is not a major American sports league. It's like the 5th league, and I think it's growing, and I like the growth of MLS, but I don't think it's even to where hockey is in popularity yet. But I could be wrong on that. They keep saying we're closing in on Major League Baseball. I'm like, I think you got to overtake NHL first.
So Miller Sports Entertainment put out a tweet. We are seeking feedback from fans and the community on their connection and experiences with Utah Royals FC and Real Salt Lake brands. Share your thoughts here, and then there's a link, and it's like a Qualtrics type survey, right? And it takes a while, by the way, to finish this whole thing. So if you're going to do it, 5-10 minutes to answer all these questions and be honest about it. But one of the questions in there is about whether or not you would want to rename the team. And for me, that's an emphatic yes. Now, part of that is because I have not been the most dyed-in-the-wool hardcore Real Salt Lake fan. I enjoy the game experiences every time I go. I think it's a great time. I love where the stadium's at. There's obviously some nostalgia for people who have been supporters of the team from the very beginning. You know, your Kyle Beckerman and your Nick Raimondo glory days and the Nat Borchers teams and all that stuff. Like, those guys wore the claret and cobalt, and it was RSL. It was Real Salt Lake. It was the Riot. It's like, it's all that stuff. It's not the Riot anymore, right? They renamed the stadium.
I think they said they're still gonna use that as a nickname, but yeah, the name it doesn't make sense with Rio Tinto.
It came
anymore,
from Rio
without
Tinto,
Rio
right?
Tinto, right?
So
yeah.
look, and these are some of the things that, like, I probably get hypocritical on this because I am very, very anti-change when we're talking about heritage brands, right? I never want to see the Yankees in a blackout uniform. I don't even care about the Yankees, but I just, like, you got to respect certain traditions. And I know that, like, Alabama doesn't mess with their uniforms. I hate when Notre Dame does the Shamrock series. Can't stand it.
You don't like the green? Is that what you're saying?
I don't even like the green. You know what I especially don't like? I especially don't like that they went with the hyper-reflective, shiny gold helmet.
Right.
It used to be a matte gold for 1,000 years. Notre Dame football had that look, and now it's, like, very, very chromish. I don't like that. Okay,
not even touching the drastic change to the Fighting Irish logo.
The Fighting Irish is now the Running Irish. They took away the old school fisticuffs pose of the leprechaun. It's silliness. All right, so I don't like rebrands when we're talking about long-standing heritage brands. RSL does not check that box for me, that it's a long-standing heritage brand that you can't mess with. For me, you can. For me, I think that's something that is more appropriate to our market, something that is more appropriate to our state than Real Salt Lake, than Real, we're copying Real Madrid. I would be fully on board with all of that. Doesn't mean you have to be, but you could share your thoughts with the Miller Entertainment Group, Miller Sports Entertainment, via the survey, and please respond to my survey as well. Part of my affection for this idea is because I thought the process of naming the Utah Mammoth was actually a lot of fun. I thought the community engagement, I thought that the debate back and forth, I thought that the people coming up with names I hated was fun. I thought the people coming up with names I liked was fun. I was all in on certain things and all out on other things. The Yeti was like, everyone loved Yeti. I wasn't huge into Yeti, but Yeti was going to be way better than like Blizzard. Yeti definitely was way better than Wasatch. I thought Yeti was better than Outlaws. And then Mammoth came along, and I'm like, perfect, boom, done. So that process could be replicated again with Real Salt Lake, but I acknowledge that there are thousands and thousands of people in this market that are like, no, man, RSL's our thing. We don't want it to change. We don't need it to change. We love Real Salt Lake. Maybe at the start it was a clunky fit because it was that copycat as MLS was launching and trying to get traction. And like now I think MLS has done a really good job of unabashedly differentiating from European clubs, of having certain teams that are not so-and-so FC, that are not Sporting Kansas City type, like where you're just, I mean, you can just name a soccer team whatever you want. You can do that. If you're in the ownership group, you want to respond to the fans, you could just create a cool brand, whether you want to kind of copycat what European soccer is doing or not. You don't have to name your team after Tottenham. So we'll see. We'll see what RSL ends up doing with this thing. But I got a couple text messages about it this morning, and I'm intrigued by this rebrand process. Also, RSL.com, if you want to watch RSL's first 2 games from Portugal. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., next Monday at 7 a.m. Obviously, those are your local times. They're not playing at 7 a.m. in Portugal.
Is that, I guess that's not part of the MLS season pass package? Is that why you got to go to RSL's website instead of if you're an Apple subscriber?
I assume that's why.
Yeah.
I never really know the reasons why certain things are found certain places.
It feels like it's a little more it's a lot more simpler with like NFL and NBA games than some other leagues. But you find this from time to time where it's like, oh, interesting. I know it's preseason, not regular season, so maybe that's it. Maybe Apple Season Pass is only a regular season thing. I'm not sure. Maybe one of our listeners who's a big RSL fan or soccer fan can educate us on that.
I'm trying to think of what I would name the soccer team, because if they decide that they're going to rebrand, right, they've got to come up with – you can't just say, hey, write in your ballot, tell us what you want. There will be that option. But there are millions of people in this Salt Lake City metro. You got to try and narrow it down the way that the Utah Mammoth did with a vote, and you got to probably put some things forward. There's always the question of, will you totally rebrand, change colors? Will you keep the colors, change the name? Will you incorporate new logos? I've never been a huge fan of what you've got from a branding standpoint, even when the team is the best and fun to watch and you had some of the best in MLS. I was always like, this would be better if they were in cooler uniforms with a different name.
I think the color scheme's fine, or have you always had a little bit of problem with the color scheme?
It's just not my favorite. I don't have a problem with it. The only thing I really have any sort of grievance against is that you just copied Real Madrid.
Yeah.
When they set down that MLS, that first and second crop of MLS teams, they were just like, just adopt a European brand and try to piggyback. And I was like, what?
And I believe Dave Checketts and Spence can help us with this, obviously. I believe Dave Checketts, Spence's father, the founder of RSL, obviously, I believe he did strike some kind of unofficial like sister club partnership. You know, like you hear about sister cities around the world. Real Madrid was not like there's nothing like official partnership with Real Madrid, but he made it sort of like a sister city, a sister club to RSL, and They flew out. I believe Beckham was on the team at that time, and a bunch of other all-time great players. They flew him out, put him up in the Grand America, had him be part of the groundbreaking of Rio Tinto Stadium, now America First Field. Just really quickly all put it together. I think Camrani did a great. I think it was him that did a great story in The Athletic about it a few years ago. But I believe that's where the Real Salt Lake came from, was this like sister club partnership that I think Real Madrid was like, oh, you're going to pay for us to go out there? I guess fine. That was the impression I got reading between the lines.
It makes sense from a new league standpoint. Just be like, hey, let's trick people into buying Real Salt Lake stuff and thinking it's Real Madrid stuff, or like,
and borrowing off of credibility of other great clubs, the same sport you're trying to establish.
I guess it kind of makes. Maybe we can get Dave Checketts on to tell us exactly how it went. But I think there's been plenty of rebrands in MLS soccer. So the New York Red Bulls started out as the New York, New Jersey Metro Stars. Yikes!
I actually didn't know that. I thought it might have been Red Bulls the whole time. Okay.
The Sporting Kansas City,
you're right,
was the Kansas City Wiz.
That's right.
The Wizards.
Sporting KC is Kansas City. I feel like they leveled up with that.
The Dallas Burn, the original Dallas franchise was the Dallas Burn. Now they're just FC Dallas. The Quakes were originally San Jose Clash. So look, yeah, some of them have changed. DC United is another one. I'm just like, it works fine. It's great, but like, you know what? Here's how you can do it if you want to make it still have some European connection, right? Like Manchester City is a big-time club in Europe now. I think always was, but they're back near the top, right? Just call it Salt Lake City.
Salt Lake City.
And it'll be like, wait, did you just name it the city? Or are you saying it's Salt Lake City?
Yeah.
Or you could do it like we're Utah City. And be like, wait, the new subdivision out in Vineyard?
I feel like
Utah City?
I was on board with you, but now I'm seeing how confusing it can be. No, if you're gonna do Salt Lake City, then you need to put that little pause into it.
Salt Lake, comma,
City.
Salt Lake, hyphen, City.
And say it cool.
Ooh.
Salt Lake City.
What about City Salt Lake?
City,
just really mess with people.
City Salt Lake. FC Salt Lake.
Or there's plenty of European clubs that it's just like a name that nobody knows where it came from. We don't know why it's called that. And you're just like, Tottenham, yeah, that's what we call it. Hotspur, what's up? Like Ajax is what it looks like. The Netherlands club.
Yeah.
That probably means something in Dutch. I don't know. Just start throwing stuff out there. Just put it down. Make it confusing, like a lot of those European clubs.
How about MTFC as in mountain?
There you go. We're getting back into the mountains thing. I don't know.
No, I'm with you. I'm totally on board with the rebrand. I think that it's become an established thing to where it's not. I wasn't necessarily like you where I ever thought it was that weird. But if anyone had that, I think we're to the point where it's been established long enough that it's probably vast majority of people it's not weird as they initially thought it would be, as they initially may have thought it was. But I'm on board with the rebrand. I think keeping claret and cobalt is fine as far as the colors, because that's become an unofficial nickname of the club too, like as is the case for a lot of soccer clubs around the world. They say the up the Reds, right, with Liverpool. They identify them by their color as much as by their name. So I think keeping claret and cobalt would be a good thing to do, but maybe not be Real Salt Lake anymore. I don't know.
Okay, so here's a fun quiz question for you. Of the current 30 MLS teams, how many are just called the City FC, like that city and football club? How many teams don't really have a moniker at all? It's just football club of their particular city. Take a crack at that one.
In MLS?
In MLS.
And how many clubs did you say there are?
There's 30.
There's 30. Probably a third of them, 10.
6, 7, 8,
6, 7.
9. There's 9.
There's 9, okay.
And that's with it's Houston Dynamo FC, it's Chicago Fire FC. I'm just talking about it's just the name of your city. There's 2 Uniteds. There's Atlanta United. There's DC United. You've got Inter Miami, which, again, just a cheap knockoff of Inter Milan. Why? Okay, I don't like that. You're going
to have to ask David Beckham about that one.
You've got St. Louis City. You've got Nashville SC instead of FC. You've got Seattle Sounders, Vancouver Whitecaps. But there's San Diego. What's the name of your team? It's just San Diego. Austin, it's just Austin. Cincinnati, it's just Cincinnati.
It's Dallas, we already mentioned.
FC Dallas, Charlotte FC, Toronto FC, St. Louis City. I guess they added the city in there. We could do that with Salt Lake, but, I mean, come on.
That works with soccer like it doesn't work with any other sport.
Yeah.
Just
remember when they thought about doing that with the hockey team?
Yeah, Utah Hockey Club.
And let's just make this permanent. I was like, ooh, it was an awesome holdover name, launch the franchise name. I wouldn't have liked it if it stayed that way.
It just doesn't a lot of soccer fans, and I'm not saying people in this market necessarily, but on national shows, Seton O'Connor, for example, on the Dan Patrick Show, one of the Danettes, he's a big soccer fan. If you listen to the show 7 to 10 here on ESPN 792.1 FM, you know that. He likes to bring up Premier League and MLS stuff whenever Dan allows him to. And he was all about Utah Hockey Club, and I think it's because he likes the simplicity of the soccer names, of soccer club names, which that's fine. And I thought it was decent enough, even though it's against the tradition of hockey and the other North American sports. I thought it was a decent enough thing to keep if that had decided to be the permanent name, but it's not outside of soccer and probably a lot of rugby clubs around the world. We don't do that here, so it just doesn't sound right.
It just has a weird feeling to it. But in soccer, it doesn't have a weird feeling to it. This is a good point brought up by Derek Hewitson on the text line. Even if they change it, I'm still calling the team RSL. Same thing with the Jazz. You change the name, I'm still calling it what I've always called it. I never stopped calling the Delta Center the Delta Center when it was Energy Solutions and Vivint. So that could happen. If you're going to rebrand RSL, you might have to drop the Real, but make it an R name so that it's still RSL.
Red Salt Lake.
You know how much better I would like that than Real Salt Lake? James, you just solved the problem
for
me.
Red Salt Lake.
Red Salt Lake.
And you could still say it could still is excuse me. I'm showing my ignorance here as far as colors goes. Claret is the red color.
Yes.
Cobalt's the blue.
Cobalt's the blue, yes.
Okay. It could still be a claret red, and so you could still call it. You could still claret and cobalt all day long if you want, but it's Red Salt Lake.
It's beautiful.
RSL.
You know why it's so great? You can adopt any mascot you want. You still like the lion.
You could have a weird looking redhead. You could have Sean White. What's the Carrot Top? Whatever, some kind of flying tomato Carrot Top guy.
James, you just solved the rebrand problem. It's Red Salt Lake. Okay. You do like a viral marketing campaign. This is beautiful.
Paint the mountains red in your AI AI marketing video.
You go out to the Salt Lake, to the actual Great Salt Lake.
Oh, yeah, red like blood.
And you just turn it red with some weird filter. Red Salt Lake,
like what Moses did to the Nile.
A lake of blood. I mean, come on,
blood?
James. You just solved the problem for all of us. Real Salt Lake is now Red Salt Lake. RSL, you keep it the same.
Go to the survey and write it in, baby.
Let's go.
And be sure to put James Peterson.
Yeah. James Peterson gets free season tickets for solving the problem for everyone.
No, I don't care. I don't care about the credit. You all can take your own credit if you want.
I thought you were going to say I don't care about the season tickets.
No, no.
I don't.
I'll take the season tickets. I love a live sporting event, even though I'm not necessarily a soccer fan. I'll do any sporting event live. Those are always fun, and I'd probably become a lot more of a soccer fan.
Tyson Howard says, "Can we trade the soccer franchise for a baseball team?" You don't have to, I don't think. We just have to wait it out with the baseball
But
thing.
if that's what it takes, I'd be on board for that.
Everyone would.
Except for, hey, not everyone. We got to acknowledge there are a lot of diehard RSL fans. Shout out Andy Larson, by the way.
Yeah, you're right. That's probably unfair.
That would be really upset if they left, and for that reason, we should do everything we can. We're going to be able to get both.
All right. I think I just want the rebrand so we can do another survey and we can do another. That name's not going to work. Come on.
Is this, by the way, I saw the press release. Interesting. It doesn't seem to be a Qualtrics survey.
Well,
it looks like it's a different company survey.
It's like the knockoff brand of Qualtrics.
Is it what's going on with the Millers and Ryan Smith?
Are we manufacturing a beef right now? Are the Millers mad at Ryan Smith? Do they refuse to support his startup company that made him a sports billionaire?
No, and maybe it is Qualtrics, but the URL does not say Qualtrics.com. It says something else.
Yeah, who knows?
That's interesting. Shout out to Qualtrics, by the way, free advertising.
We're way over time here. I do want to remind you that Five Finger Death Punch and PBR are both coming. We have tickets to both events in Topical Trivia at 1:45 p.m. You can also purchase tickets to either of these events on sale now. Details can be found at ESPN700sports.com. Five Finger Death Punch and professional bull riding. We have one of the bull riders, Cade Madsen, joining us in just a bit. That'll actually be at 1:30. Sean O'Connell Show, wages on. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. We now have people texting in ideas for the Real Salt Lake rebrand. Keep them coming, 877-353-0700. James, we decided your wife has adopted the Buffalo Bills as her favorite team. Is that right?
Yes, she has. She is with Joshy through this hard time.
Okay. I don't like the Joshy thing.
And our listeners do not either. We've gotten some text about that.
My question is, how is she feeling today that the owner answered questions about firing Sean McDermott and basically said, I started thinking about this when our team lost to Denver? You have clips? Let's play these clips. Sometimes being an owner is best done very, very silently. Go ahead and play.
My decision to bring in a new coach was based on the results of our game in Denver. I want to take you in the locker room after that game. I looked around. First thing I noticed was our quarterback with his head down, crying. I looked at all the other players. I looked at their faces and our coaches. I walked over to Josh. He didn't even acknowledge I was there. First thing I said to him, I said, "That was a catch." We all know what I'm talking about. He didn't acknowledge me. He just sat there sobbing. He was listless. He had given everything he had to try to win that game. And looking around, so did all the other players on the team. I saw the pain in Josh's face at his presser, and I felt his pain. I know we can do better, and I know we will get better.
First of all, Terry Pagula, I hate the sound of your voice. All right, cannot stand the way that you talk. That's neither here nor there. You know why your quarterback was so devastated? Not because he's poorly coached. It's because he's one of the most talented players in all of football right now, and he turned the ball over a bunch of times in a close game and lost.
And if you're wondering that, Mr. Pagula, if you're wondering about that, all you have to do is listen to what he said, what Josh Allen said in the post-game podium. He said, "I feel like I let the team down." He's upset about the loss, yes. He's disappointed about the loss, but he's mostly disappointed about the loss because he felt like it was his fault. He had good reason for that.
Is this the first time that Terry Pagula has walked into a locker room after a loss and seen people that are disappointed and emotional? So he's like, I have to do something about this. Here's the thing with sports, man. When you lose, it hurts. It sucks, especially when it's a loss that ends your season, especially when it's a loss that ends a season where you know you probably could have achieved more. And when the expectation, because your team is really good and is well coached, you've gotten to a point now where expectations are not just making it to the playoffs, not even making it to an AFC championship. You got to get to the Super Bowl. You got to win a Super Bowl. You've already checked so many of these boxes. Is this the first time an owner has walked in and just been like, oh, wow, these guys are sad. I better fix this for them. How can I fix it? I better fire the coach. Now, look, make the case however you want that it was time for this person to go. When Bisciotti, the Ravens owner, sat down and addressed the media and talked about the decision to fire John Harbaugh and to move on from John Harbaugh, he was asked about, hey, if that kick had gone in, how much longer does Harbaugh get to keep his job? And he was like, well, another week probably. He had already made the decision. It was not an emotional decision for the Ravens owner. And whether or not it's going to be viewed as the right decision by history, I'm skeptical of. But at the very least, he was not like, I felt bad about a single loss, and then I decided we need to fire this guy. Now, McDermott doesn't have the credentials, the cachet that Harbaugh does. So it's not a perfect comparison or a perfect analogy here. But what we're looking at is an owner, a billionaire. This guy's worth $10 billion, who's like, I just made a rash emotional decision. Is that what you're asking? And they're like, yeah. We were wondering if that was the case, and you just admitted yes.
And see, I'm not, because it's not surprising to me that after another playoff disappointment for Buffalo, that this time around they're going to blame it on the coach, because you're not going to trade Josh Allen yet. Maybe at some point they do.
Sure.
But you're not going to trade Josh Allen yet. You already changed offensive coordinators not that long ago. Remember when Ken Dorsey threw a fit and broke everything in the press box, and then a couple weeks later they decided Joe Brady needed to be the guy? Like, they already did that. That was, 2 years ago? You're not going to – Sean McDermott's not going to be able to say, you know what, it's not me and my defense's fault. It's the offense. He's not going to be able to do that again. And it clearly is the weak link on that team is the defense. So it's not surprising me. So I would believe that he's saying it the wrong way and making it sound like this was not something he and Brandon Beane weren't already contemplating all season long, even though it seems like, of course, they were contemplating it all season long, because who else do you get rid of in this case? Other than trading everyone around and releasing everyone around Josh Allen, I suppose, as far as the players go. It was the time when it kind of, unfortunately for Sean McDermott, kind of felt like it was the time, if there was another playoff disappointment, for him to go.
Play the Keon Coleman soundbite from, again, Bill's owner talking about a specific player here and the draft process of how they ended up with Keon Coleman, who had a disappointing year.
Yeah, can I interrupt? I'll address the Keon situation. The coaching staff pushed to draft Keon. I'm not saying Brandon wouldn't have drafted him, but he wasn't his next choice. That was Brandon being a team player and taking advice of his coaching staff, who felt strongly about the player. And, he's taken, for some reason, heat over it and not saying a word about it. But I'm here to tell you the true story.
So Keon Coleman catches a pretty nasty stray here. And there's a conversation about whether or not the Bills have drafted well enough to surround Josh Allen with the talent that he needs. Only two of the guys that they've drafted since drafting Josh Allen have become Pro Bowlers. There's this, but it's not like they haven't tried. There's been 19 receivers either signed as free agents or drafted in that time. And to be Keon Coleman and to be like, whoa, why is this about me? You fired a coach.
When he had a really nice, was this his third year in the league, I think?
He got drafted in 24.
Yeah. So, second year in the league,
He'll be going into his third year?
Going into his third year. He had a pretty nice rookie year. Not like number one wide receiver, even Pro Bowl type stuff, but enough where you're like, yeah, they made a good decision here. He regressed in his second year. That happens with a lot of players, by the way. Doesn't mean that Keon Coleman should be completely written off, but also, I mean, it's fair to criticize his play, but not in this setting. Like, what's going on here?
Well, okay, so let this be a lesson to everyone under the sun. Keon Coleman in the game against the Broncos, one catch for 10 yards, and it was a touchdown catch, okay? When you are supreme leadership, top-level leadership in a sports organization, call it a pro organization, college sports are pro organizations, whatever, the granular minutia, the roster stuff is not yours to comment on if you have people underneath you hired to handle those things. If you're Jerry Jones, you got to answer those questions because you refuse to delegate the responsibility to other people. If you are an owner I decided to fire this coach because we lost that playoff game. Yikes, buddy. Leave it at that. That's yikes enough. That's an emotional decision you're admitting to. It's your team. You can do whatever you want. By the way, all the other coaches in the league are having to look at this, whether they think that they could do a better job with the Buffalo Bills or not. They're looking at that and going like, do I not want to work as Josh Allen's coach now because this owner is such a weirdo, such a wild card? Why is he talking about players on the roster? Why is he burning a bridge with a talented guy who has not yet lived up to that talent and throwing him under the bus? Do not get involved in the minutia. Don't talk about it. Don't tweet about it. Don't put people on blast. Leave it alone. When you are the boss, you're the top of the ladder. You have delegates. You have layers of insulation between you and that kind of failure and that kind of success. If you're the owner and Keon Coleman ends up being the best player in the history of the NFL, you don't get to say, that was my call, that was my thing, that's what I wanted to do. You can praise your GM for doing it right. You can praise your coach for pushing for it. But you don't go, ooh, you know what? That one was not the GM's fault. That was the coach's fault. What are you doing?
And you got Brandon Beane is right there next to you. He's a big boy. He can answer for this. He guess what? As the GM, he should and is willing to take the responsibility, whether it was at the behest of the coaching staff or not. Those are his draft picks.
And you're obviously, as the owner, you're just like, to my knowledge, he wasn't asked directly about Keon Coleman before he brought that up.
No.
It's just like, well, Keon hasn't worked out. That wasn't Bean's call. It's like, oh, no. Don't talk about that.
Well, and Brandon Beane, he's making. I mean, I would not be surprised if Brandon Beane is feeling a certain way about that too, because now he's giving off the impression that Brandon Beane is the kind of boss that doesn't want to take responsibility for things that are ultimately his call, even if he's just relenting to what the coaching staff wants in this case. It's still ultimately his call. Nobody wants a boss that says, "Hey, even though I allowed that to happen, I'm not going to take responsibility for it." So he's putting his new president of football operations in a bad way too.
It's just an odd look. It's an odd sound. Back up from the microphone a little bit. We don't need to hear your mouth noises and your breathing. And don't admit that you're making, even if you do make emotional decisions, that is your right as the owner. It's not a good look to be like, I started thinking about firing this guy after we lost to the Broncos in what was a razor-thin, tight playoff game, by the way.
Which, by the way, you admitted that it probably hung on a, in your opinion, bad call, which that's your opinion. That is not fact, by the way. It was the right call. But in your opinion, a bad call, you admitted that it was that razor thin and that, like, he needed to be, we knew going into this season, if we had another playoff disappointment, we would need to consider making a change. That's what he needed to say. Instead, he made it sound like it was an emotional thing. Like, ridiculous.
All right. Daily Dump is next. We'll take a quick one here. We'll come back. The Truck with the Duck gives you a potpourri of stories. Rob from Valley Plumbing is here. He's going to help us out on the Sean O'Connell Show. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. You've been driving around, you've seen the truck with the duck, and you probably are like, oh, yeah, I got to get that water heater looked at. I'm thinking about getting a tankless in, something like that. Well, now Valley Plumbing also handles HVAC. So if you got a plumbing issue, drain cleaning issue, the truck with the duck can take care of you there. If you're worried about your furnace, you haven't had to use it that much this year, if we're being honest. You could still get that thing tuned up and checked out while it's not humming necessarily, and Valley Plumbing can take care of that too. Rob from Valley Plumbing is here in studio with us. Welcome back, sir. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me here.
So I asked you off air, how's the rollout gone? When you're a company that's so dialed in on plumbing, there's a risk associated with opening a new section of your services to HVAC, and I imagine there's challenges with it, but you guys are already humming along.
It is going. I think we made some good decisions at the start to get the right people in to help. And, honestly, I thought it would be just like plumbing, just the same old. I couldn't be more wrong. It's like black and white. It's a complete different thing that a lot of headaches, but, people do know how to do it. And I think we've got the right people, which is, we've been growing, and we're about to hire another person. So, it's gone from 0 to almost 4 within with a month and a half.
And that's, kind of off peak because of how the weather's been.
Yeah. And you would think, okay, if it was freezing cold, everybody's using their systems. Yeah. They're just calling whoever can come out. But right now, that's not the case. I haven't used my system at all this year. Occasionally turn on a fireplace. But then again, that is the problem, right? It's a lot of people are starting to realize that now is the time to get their systems, tuned up. It's now that they can get in, because if all of a sudden we have a cold snap, they're going to call and, hey, we're going to get to you as fast as we can, but we've got, days out.
Yeah, because there's a bunch of people calling having that same problem. So now's the good time, all right? Enjoy the beautiful weather, unseasonably warm, but also don't just take it for granted that furnace is going to fire up nice and easy. Check your filters, do all that stuff.
Absolutely.
And look, there are a lot of us out there who are just not exactly Bob Vila handyman when it comes to things like plumbing at home, things like working on our own stuff. And that's why we have to call Valley Plumbing, because I do more damage than I can do help for myself.
No, I'm with you, and I promise you I'm like every other plumber out there where I don't even do my plumbing in my own house. My last house, our air conditioner stopped working. We had no idea what was going on, and oh wait, there's that filter. What's that? Where is it? I had no idea. The whole system froze up because I didn't know I had to replace a filter.
So don't feel bad, because even people in the industry are making some of those mistakes.
Yeah.
But get it checked out right now. What's the best way to get a hold of Valley Plumbing?
You can call us at 801-341-4222, or you can go online at www.valleyplumbing.com.
So we were talking earlier today about the schedule release, the Big 12 football schedule release for next year. Utah BYU being played in week 10 instead of end of the season in rivalry week. I got a big problem with it. It's obviously the biggest game of the year every year on the Utah slate. I think it's the best sports day on our calendar. Doesn't matter what the Jazz or the Mammoth or anyone's doing. Utah BYU football game is like a holiday here in the state. I just wanted to get your thoughts on the fact that the Big 12 hasn't fully bought into that yet, it seems.
No, but honestly, I think they put it a little bit earlier, then obviously U, when they lose, they have time to recuperate before, the playoffs or a bowl game. So I think that's a good thing for them.
Ute fans not loving that. So we talked about the HVAC, the plumbing situation right now, where I mentioned it as you were coming in. You've got your traditional water heaters. Most of us grew up with that system, and now the tankless is for a lot of people a really good option. But there's a lot of questions about the efficiency of it, the cost of it. Are there ways, if it's too expensive for me now, can I finance these things? If I wanted to go tankless, can Valley Plumbing help me out?
Oh, absolutely. And I'll be the first to tell you, it's not for everybody. If you think that it is endless hot water, yes, you are correct. But if you think it's endless hot water and it's going to save you a lot of money, you are very wrong. Because if you use the endless hot water, you are going to pay a lot of money to heat that thing. But if you are somebody that travels a lot, if you are somebody that has a fluctuation of how many people are there, one day you have 5, next day you have 10, a tankless water heater is great because it can fluctuate with the load of people that are showering. Or if you leave town for a month, the greatest part about a tankless is you pay nothing to heat that while you're gone, where a normal water heater, you would pay all month to heat that whether you use it or not. So there is definitely some huge benefits. And yes, it is a greater upfront investment compared to a standard water heater, where you pay a little more upfront, but there still is rebates through Therm and places like that. But if you take care of the tankless, you do it right, they can last almost twice as long as a tank water heater as well. So over time, it pays for itself.
Reasons to look at it, reasons to maybe stick with your current system. One thing, I hate to admit this, all right? My wife, for the longest, we got a house in the Avenues. The water's pretty hard up there. She was just like, we are killing our fixtures. We're killing our plumbing fixtures, our appliances by not having a water softener in here. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? I'm a caveman. I don't need soft water. She's like, stop. We have to get a water softener. So I waited too long. We had, build up on the shower heads and all that kind of stuff. Hopefully it didn't do any damage to my dishwasher, my washing machine, things like that. But softening the water, sometimes it's necessary here with certain municipalities in the water we got.
I grew up drinking from a hose. I love the taste of plastic, a little bit of warm water, and those minerals. I think they're good for you. But if you don't want to have to constantly replace your fixtures, your water heater, your faucets, you have to do some kind of filtration. And the best kind of filtration up here is water softeners. Now, I think that I'm being a very bad business person by telling you to put in a softener, because then you don't have to see me all the time. So if you would like to see us a lot, we'll be more than happy to visit you every 6 months and replace stuff like toilets, faucets, things like that. And then you don't have to worry about a softener. But if you don't want to see us all the time, which does hurt my feelings, a softener would be the way to go.
If I need a gas line so I can put in a gas log for my fireplace, I can call you for that, right?
Absolutely.
You are going to be getting a call from me on that specific thing. Because, again, happy wife, happy life, all right?
Okay.
Check off the honey-do list. That's one of those things I'm going to need Valley Plumbing to help me out with. And the reason I brought it up is because they can help you out with just about everything under the sun you can imagine in the plumbing and now the HVAC world, and probably a lot of the stuff you don't know they do. They probably do that as well.
Yes. We also do a lot of things that people don't understand. Is we do a lot of underground work as well, where your sewer line, your water line, it's got to go from the city to your house or from your house out to the street. Run into a lot of problems this time of year, where trees aren't growing up, they're growing down. They're growing into your sewer lines, they're breaking, stuff like that. We do a lot of that work right now.
No joke. I had a situation this summer. So we live up in our house is built in like 1960, right? And the stop and waste valve, the one that you got to turn your sprinkler key in, normally that's 6 feet down or whatever. Ours is like 10 inches under the surface.
Oh, good. So that's good for the frost.
And I don't know why it was built that way. I don't know who built it that way. And it's also on old galvanized pipe that's just rusted all to hell, right? So there was a youngish guy in the neighborhood doing sprinkler work, and I was walking my dog and was just like, hey, could you come look at this for me? I don't know if it's going to be a problem, whatever. He dug the whole thing out, and he was like, I'm not going to lie. And I appreciate him being honest, because that's not always the case. He says, I'm not going to lie to you. I can't handle this. I don't know how to handle this. You need to get a real plumber out here. So sometimes you think you're doing yourself a favor. You're saving yourself money. You're saving yourself time or whatever by going with the neighbor kid who does the sprinklers and stuff like that. And a lot of times you need people who really know the business to do that big, heavy work, especially that underground stuff.
And we have an entire division that's all they do. They don't do inside plumbing. They don't do heating and air conditioning. The only thing they do is underground all day long, sewer and water.
Valley Plumbing, the truck with the duck. Give us the number one more time.
It's 341-4222.
They can take care of all of it for you and then some. Give them a call if you need any help with your plumbing, your HVAC. Weirdly enough, it's January, but you could still work on the sprinklers. They can do it all right now. The ground's not froze up.
It's beautiful outside.
All right, lots left to get to on the Sean O'Connell Show. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Look, on the Sean O'Connell Show, most of the time we're not going to talk about ACC quarterback transfer things unless that guy is headed to the Big 12, headed to the University of Utah or BYU, or if he's maybe leaving one of those schools to go to the ACC. But this Darian Mensah thing from Duke is really interesting. So there's an injunction right now. He's allowed to enter the transfer portal. He can't commit to anywhere, so he can just say, I'm in the transfer portal. as Duke is suing him for breaking his contract and seeking a restraining order to where he cannot be negotiating with other teams and he cannot be doing the whole transfer portal thing. Now, why does this matter to Utah? Why does this matter to BYU? Why does it matter to the Big 12? Because very, very similar to the Damon Williams thing at Washington, contracts are signed, and if you just don't decide that they're enforceable, you don't decide that you can actually do anything if somebody changes their mind, then the contracts mean nothing in college sports. And already we've called it the Wild West, we've called it a slippery slope, we've called it craziness, we've called it a mess. And we are already firmly in that, 2 feet in, wallowing around, trying to figure it out, wiping the mud away from people's faces like, oh, look, there's a little glimmer of hope. Something cool can happen here. If you get into a situation and a precedent is established where somebody can be offered $500,000, $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, whatever, and can sign and say, yes, I will play here. Yes, I intend to be here for 2026. Yes, I want to be. Yes, I'm quote unquote committed, to use the old terms of college football and football recruiting. And then someone's just like, I got a phone call from a Miami booster that says I can be committed there for another $1 million or another $2 million or for a boat or for whatever. And so I have changed my mind, and now that signature doesn't mean anything. It's going to be much more of a mess than any of us can even imagine. Like, there will be no – if you set that precedent now where these contracts don't mean anything, some lament the every year free nature kind of free agency thing. It will be every game. The slippery slope ends in a spot where nothing is enforceable, where contracts don't mean a thing, where commitments don't mean a thing, where roster inclusion is just like based on the whims of 18-year-old kids. And the weird agents that are only in it to make money, don't have any interest in academic success, don't have any interest in people graduating, don't have any interest in people maximizing how many reps they get and making sure that they're preparing themselves for the next level, if that is even a realistic possibility. We all have to be emotionally invested in some of the outcomes here, even if you are the most hardcore, dyed-in-the-wool player rights advocate where you're like, it is an absolute atrocity that college sports were dubbed amateur for so long, and these athletes were beholden to a system that did not take care of them, did not protect them, even if you hate that, you cannot want this version of college football to be the norm, where a Darian Mensah or a Damon Williams or a whomever, where a, dare I say it, a Devin Dampier could sign a deal, announce that he has signed the deal, tell everyone he had signed the deal, get everyone excited about the fact that he had signed the deal, get a phone call from somebody else, like let's say Miami or Indiana, who now really has to wade into the transfer portal waters. Maybe a guy that they didn't expect to leaves, right? And now they've got to backfill that position. Now they're calling your guy. The transfer portal's closed for your guy. The transfer portal never should have been a thing for your guy. Now they're calling, and that thing goes, oh, wait, I can make more money there? All right, now I've changed my mind. Changing your mind is a part of growing up. It's a part of life. But contracts are in place to prevent the consequences of whimsical mind changing affecting those that you've made agreements with. If I just tell you tomorrow that I no longer care about what this contract says, I'm releasing you from your responsibility of paying me my money, Duke. And Duke's like, great, thank you. We'd love to keep the money, but actually we need your services, and that's why we agreed to pay you the money. So we need you to stay in this agreement. No, I can't do it anymore. No, but you can't change your mind. We have to sue you to tell you that you can't change your mind on this contract? Well, but they're going to give me more money. We'll do what we can to meet you in the middle, kid, but you signed this contract. I know for a fact that the stance right now with Utah football is you do not negotiate with terrorists. You do not entertain the ask of something that is beyond your current contract while you're under the terms of your current contract, because they do not support the Wild West, the lawlessness, the insanity. And Duke doesn't either. Washington stuck their neck out for all of us. Duke is sticking their neck out for all of us by saying, hey, like, yes, player rights, advocacy for earning, etc., but it has to stop at some point, and where we are going to draw the line is you sign a contract with us, and now you're expecting us not to enforce that contract. The thing that worries me is that the NCAA's power here is dubious at best. The College Sports Commission's power here is dubious at best. Judges end up having the ultimate power. Judges are the reason why we have this system in the first place. And if you turn it over to individual judges, there could, like, if you're Darian Mensah and you're willing to stand on principle hard enough, I'm not going back to Duke. Well, the first judge says you have to, you sign this contract. Fine. Appeal in a different court, in a different spot. I need to be released from this. At some point, you're going to find a judge who has a beef with whatever, or is liberal enough for this, or is conservative enough for that, that they're going to make a ruling in favor of what you want. Judges have the power here, and it is dangerous for the fabric of college football, for the fabric of American sport as we know it. So I don't really give a bleep where Darian Mensah plays football next year. I don't. But I don't want him to set a precedent where he can sign a contract and get out of it. If this sounds like a rerun of what I said when the Damon Williams situation was at hand, it's because it is. And spoiler alert, this will be my opinion the next time somebody does this, and the next time somebody does this, and the next time somebody does this, because if you allow precedent to be set, one thing we know about the American legal system is once a court of law has determined that this thing is okay, that this thing is legal, everybody else jumps on board and says, oh, they did that? I can do it too. And the number one part of your defense is, oh, well, in the case of Adrian Denny versus James Peterson, it was ruled in favor that he could break his contract. And now it's a mess.
No, he can't.
Of the highest order.
That's absolutely false, OC. Adrian Denny, we are holding him to every week,
Yes.
Wednesdays at 1.
Yes, Adrian Denny
Between the
pipes.
And if you're watching on YouTube, Adrian is awkwardly standing behind me as we're talking about him behind his back.
Adrian's just like, wait, you guys are getting paid to be here? Like, Adrian's just like, I have to. We give Adrian, we pay him in breath mints, okay? But the contract, he signed the contract, all right? He's got to stay. Your opinion on this matters. Your support of contracts being enforceable matters, because at the end of the day, if Darian Mensah wins his case and Darren Heitner is his lawyer, if they get him out of this contract, by the way, Darren Heitner, University of Miami guy, shocking to anyone? No? The judge that initially was going to rule on this case was a Duke University season ticket holder in basketball, and thereby could be legally implied was a Duke booster, and so had to recuse themselves. This judge had to recuse themselves from the case, say, I can't because I'm a Duke fan. Like, that's how weird and messed up and strange and convoluted this stuff is. But it matters to Utah, to BYU, to Utah State, to Southern Utah, to Weber, to everyone. If you are going to be in a world...
Don't leave my Trailblazers out. Utah Tech, let's go.
It does not matter to Utah Tech because they have never signed anyone to an NIL contract.
How dare you?
That's probably not true. I'm sure there's someone down there who's driving a free car around from a St. George auto dealership.
He's got a really nice minivan he's driving around.
And honestly, how upsetting would it be for Trailblazers fans out there if that person was just like, well, I was told that if I transfer up to Murdoch Ford Santa Quinn and go to BYU, they're going to give me an F-150 instead. and I don't want this minivan anymore.
We'd be up in arms.
You'd be like, what? No.
We would riot, OC.
Contracts matter, dudes, ladies, gentlemen, people of all shapes, sizes, and colors. You can't support this level of freedom for college kids. I am all on board with them living the life and learning the hard lessons. You can't be like, well, my son signed a contract without fully understanding that he couldn't leave, so you have to let him out of the contract. No, that's not how the real world is going to work for him moving forward, ma'am, sir. He's going to have to do this thing. And now Duke's in an absolutely terrible, untenable position where not only do you have to try to reel this back in and keep him, or the best case scenario is you end up letting him go. He has to pay damages. You recoup whatever you lost. But guess what you don't have? You don't have a quarterback of his equal talent and production. Ouch. Enough. Let's go between the pipes with Adrian Denny next. We'll talk a little Utah Mammoth. Guess what? I didn't want to admit it before. I don't want to admit it now. But they're red hot. We're not going to jinx it. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. All right, Cade Madsen, PBR Bull Rider, is going to join us next. Right now, we've got Adrian Denny between the pipes. Brought to you by Aladdin Industries, your Utah V-Lux dealer. Adrian Denny, Mammoth Insider. How are you?
What's up, man? How's it going?
It's
Ready
going
for
well.
Game 7 of the homestand here?
I'm.
It's been 15 days already.
I know.
It's over.
I'm especially excited for Game 7 of the homestand because the homestand has gone so swimmingly well for this Utah Mammoth team. And I have to give you, like I did last time, I have to give you credit. You said that, this was one where you could pile up some points. You talked about individual players being able to potentially round into the proper form in this particular stretch of games. And I don't know how it could have gone much better. Your last three are pretty darn impressive. 6-3, 2-1 against a very tough Stars team, 6-1 against the Maple Leafs. And, like you said, your chances of emerging from this homestand with, maybe winning 5 of 7, you already did.
Yeah, I recalibrated my expectations after the 2-1 win against Dallas when the Mammoth had taken 9 of a possible 10 points and gone, 4-0-1 to start the homestand. And like, okay, now you've got 2 games in 7 days. You play Seattle Saturday, you play Philly on Wednesday. One game at a time, you can take 13 of a possible 14 points here. And as you said, I would have been happy with 5-2. I think 4-2-1 definitely would have got the job done as far as the big season picture for the Mammoth. But 13 of 14 points possible, a 6-0-1 homestand, and they've put themselves in the first wild card spot in the Western Conference. So it's been good. And OC, it's funny how you win that game against Ottawa. It was a 1-goal game for 22-plus minutes. You win at 3-1. You play okay against St. Louis. Vejmelka was good. You lost in overtime to Columbus, a game that's just kind of a Sunday game. You come out, fall behind, tie, take the lead for a while, take some penalties, lose the game in overtime, get a point. And then last week, some statement games. I thought you never beat Toronto before, beat them 6-1, beat Dallas, never beat them at home before, had lost 4 games to them by a single goal. And then the game against Seattle, team wrapping up a trip, and it had some ups and downs, but they took it over late, and 6-3 looked pretty good on the scoreboard. So week 1, you're playing okay. You're winning some games. Last week, some statement wins. It's always fun to see how when you're winning, how you just kind of get better at winning as things go along and beat better teams and find better ways to win games, as I think they have to start the homestand 5-0-1 and go 7-1-1 to start January.
What was in Nate Schmidt's coffee that day of the Kraken game? 2 goals, 2 assists, big time game for him.
I was talking with Matt McConnell, our television play-by-play announcer, about Nate earlier, and gosh, you knew he was a good player. You knew he was a great guy. You knew he'd never have a bad day. You knew he was a good leader. You knew he was a Stanley Cup champion. Mammoth signed him to a 3-year contract, but holy cow, what he's done. Number one, playing defense for the Mammoth with his partner John Marino. Him and John Marino, 2 of the top 10 players in the NHL in plus-minus rating, which if you're on the ice for a 5-on-5 goal, you get a plus. If you're on the ice for a 5-on-5 goal against, you get a minus. So you got him, John Marino, 7 members of the Colorado Avalanche, and 1 player from Tampa Bay. That's your top 10. So that's what kind of defense they've been playing. And in the last 7 games for the Mammoth, those 2 have combined for 3 of the 7 game-winning goals. Schmidt had the 4-point night on Saturday. He was just involved in everything. He had the puck right before something good happened for Utah every time. And on that game-winning goal that he scored in the final 5 minutes, him and John Marino were the only 2 Utah players on the ice. There's 5 Seattle players in their defensive zone, and you've got Keller, Schmaltz, and Krause just kind of hopping over the boards to join the guys, and Marino and Schmidt are just kind of playing catch. Johnny dumped the puck in, Schmidt went and got it, found Keller, and then Schmidt goes out in front, undefended. And there was some stuff that went wrong for Seattle in that third period. That's fair to say, but wide open. You got to hit the net, and he did, and gave the Mammoth the lead. And then Lawson Krause, just over 40 seconds later, went to the same spot. Keller found him again. So it was a nice game for Schmidt, but strong defensively. But gosh, when you have a D-man who has the instinct like that to read the play and get pucks through, and he's talked about training the forwards. We're going to get pucks through. We got to have them in front of the net to set screens and knock loose pucks home. So it's been a big part of the homestand.
You already mentioned another 2-assist night for Clayton Keller. The captain has maybe more so than ever embraced his role as a facilitator for his teammates. It's nice that you brought in some more goal scoring this year, and you've got, even with Cooley out, Gunther kind of rounding back into what we saw in the best stretches from him. Is this the most sustainable, best version of Clayton Keller for the deep run?
I'm watching the game against Seattle on Saturday, and he's, possessing the puck and going in and out. And I'm thinking, this is the kid in junior high all alone in his driveway that's going between his legs. He's popping shots. He's all alone. He's not being guarded. He's got the time and space because there's nobody else out there. You know what I'm saying? When you're out on the basketball floor all by yourself and you're doing moves and you're trying stuff out, except he's doing it in an NHL game with 5 defenders on the ice. And he's got 9 assists in 6 home games here on the homestand so far. 8 of the 9 have been primary assists, meaning the last pass before the goal comes from Clayton Keller to the goal scorer. And we talked about it last week, and it's continued into the second half of the homestand in terms of, just the domination and just the way that he's able to create stuff. And guys like to shoot the puck, and he's shot the puck a lot too. He's got such a hard slap shot. Like, it doesn't always hit the net, but it's, you retrieve the puck and you still got it offensively. You can do other stuff with it. So he's got the passing threat, but he can shoot too. And he's so crafty and creative, and his instinct for the game. And he plays with guys like Nick Schmaltz, who he's been with for almost a decade. But you talk about predictability and the way that he plays. His teammates, in addition to Nick Schmaltz, know what he's looking for and what he wants to do, and it's led to success.
Adrian Denny, our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, Between the Pipes with our Mammoth Insider. What do you expect against Philadelphia to close out this homestand?
I think it's a trap game. I think Game 7 of a homestand is, another box you need to check. Philly had lost 6 in a row until they went into Vegas on Monday night and snapped their 7-game winning streak with a 2-1 win. They had 2 breakaway goals. Their goalie, Samuel Ersson, stopped 24-25. They killed over 90 seconds, down 6-on-4 at the end of the game because they took a penalty late, and Vegas had a 2-man advantage with their top 5 power play and couldn't tie it up. So Philly has been in a playoff spot throughout most of the season until the last week and a half. Their starting goaltender, Dan Vladar, has been hurt. He's day-to-day. He's not going to play tonight. He could play Friday in Colorado, but he's kind of been what has gotten the job done for Philly. He's a goaltender that's going to be on the Czechia national team with Karel Vejmelka. Philly's 7-10-4 when he's not in the lineup, 16-7-4 when he does play. So they've missed him. They were outscored 31-12 during that stretch where they didn't win a game in 6, but they've got Rick Tocchet as their coach. He's a guy that a lot of these Utah players have played for before. They just always seem to be in it in a game, in the standings. They win a lot of games 2-1. They're pretty dialed down in their system and their defensive structure. So Philly's, I think, exactly where we thought they'd be. 5 games above 500. They're 3 points out of a wild card spot. They have been in the top 3 in their Metropolitan Division, but dropped off with Dan Vladar getting hurt. But these 2 teams played last year as Utah was wrapping up a homestand, and Utah was behind 2-0 for most of the game, it felt like. Their goalie, Samuel Ersson, stopped 38 of 41 shots, and it took some heroics from Dylan Gunther in his first game back from an injury to win it, as he did in overtime. So I think tough game. You want to finish the homestand how it's been for the first 6, but head coach Andre Tourigny telling us after the optional morning skate today, everybody's like, what's gone good with you? What's been good? And he's like, well, we've been really good at managing games, but we don't want this to be a spurt. We don't want this to be a streak. Like, good teams don't have to think about the way that they go out and manage and maintain games and play with leads and don't fall behind and just go about their business. So I think that is now the next step for the Mammoth. We talk about how they want to play, manage games, play with a lead, not take penalties at bad times, not get scored upon when you score a goal, not give up consecutive goals. Now it's, okay, we've done this, so now let's do it without thinking about it in terms of how we go about our business every day.
The Flyers are also holding on 54 points right now. We're right exactly where the Mammoth are. Does that mean they're equals? This should be like a nice little heavyweight fight? I know styles make fights,
Yeah.
right? And it's all about matchups. But are they roughly equally matched in your mind?
The analytics say they are, offensively, defensively. We talk about analytics, but don't always explain it. So what we're looking at with the Mammoth, there is an analytic called expected goals percentage. So in a game, Utah's expected goals percentage for the season's like 54%, meaning that in a 5-on-5 game played on paper with their numbers and their opponent, they're expected to score 54% of the goals. Opposition's expected to score 46. The Mammoths analytics kind of match up, expected goals percentage versus goal percentage. Phillies do too. They're a tight defensive team. Their issue's been their goaltending, but as I said, they had goaltending issues last year, and Samuel Ersson stopped 38 of 41. He's going to be in between the pipes tonight for the Flyers. So I would say, are they equal? No, because I think Utah is trending up. I think Philly is probably where they're going to stay in the hunt for a playoff position, while the Mammoth, I think, coming out of Christmas and into January have started to win games and be where they kind of expected at this point of the year, knowing that they were probably going to be a 500 team through Christmas and New Year's.
So all the hope is you finish out this homestand correctly, and then it's Nashville, Tampa, Florida Panthers, Carolina Hurricanes, all on the road. So between now and the next time we talk to you, they're going to have this Philadelphia matchup and then 3 really tough ones on the road. Same question I gave you for the homestand. What do you need to see from a points accumulation standpoint on this road stretch?
So let's put it into a 5-game stretch, including tonight.
Okay.
Right? So you got to win tonight. You're going to Nashville. That's a Central Division team that's chasing. They're trying to get above that playoff line. That's a game you really want. And then for me, win 1 of 3 in Carolina, Tampa Bay, and Florida. It's probably going to be Carolina, because you're playing in a back-to-back Tampa, Florida. That's not easy. That's like going Vegas to Utah, Vegas to Colorado in terms of what we're used to out west on a back-to-back. So Tampa's the hottest team in the league. Florida's, they're going to get hot.
They're Florida.
Matthew Tkachuk back.
Yeah.
They're not in the playoff picture now, but they're always – it's a team Utah's never beaten. So if you can take 1 of 3, hopefully beat Nashville and move forward, I think that's it. If they take 1 game on the 4-game trip, come back and finish strong going into the Olympics, wouldn't surprise me.
Speaking of Florida, we were treated to a rare goalie fight. Bob goes all the way across the ice to get at the Sharks goaltender. I love it. I love it when the goalies mix it up.
You like it when they have fire, right? And they didn't get kicked out of the game either. They just got 5-minute fighting majors. Gosh, it was Matthew Tkachuk's first game back with Florida, playing San Jose. He was just so sneaky. They had the Florida, Tampa Bay back-to-back Monday, Tuesday. They got smoked in Tampa Bay last night. The backup goalie for San Jose, Alex Nedeljkovic, who's from Michigan, by the way. You're like, oh, what Eastern European country is that?
Nedeljkovic, where is he from?
He's a USA, born and bred. My favorite story about him, we're playing him in the ECHL years ago. We're in Florida. He's in the ECHL. I'm with the Grizzlies. And Justin Peters is starting the game for Florida. And the Florida broadcaster comes over to me. He's like, just in case you need it, it's Nedeljkovic. I said, well, thanks anyway, but we play you one time, and I'm not going to say his name. The Grizzlies scored 3 goals in the first 90 seconds of the game. They're up 3-0. They pulled Justin Peters, put Alex Nedeljkovic in, and bless his heart, he races over with a strip of paper and spells it out phonetically, Alex Nedeljkovic, and I'm holding it up the entire game every time I said his name. Saved by Nedeljkovic.
That's awesome. A little behind the scenes.
Yeah.
on how to try to sound right.
So, OC, I would say probably until the last year I was fumbling through it. Now I just say it so everybody knows how great I am
Well, I'm glad
pronouncing names.
There was a reason why I said the Sharks goaltender instead of Nedeljkovic, because you don't want to butcher the name. And it's you're prone to sometimes with these Eastern European spellings. We talked a lot about Olympic hockey. Obviously, Kells is on the U.S. Olympic roster, something we were hoping to see, and that came to fruition. We've talked about the arena with the not Jumbotron, the Tron. The Russian ban for this because of the Ukrainian war, the Ukrainian conflict. Russia's being sanctioned, and the Russian hockey team, Russian athletes do not get to represent their country under the Russian flag. Does that affect any of the Mammoth guys? Would we have seen Sergachev and Daniil Boot and some of these guys have an opportunity?
I think so. There's a lot of great players in Russia that play in the KHL, but there's some really good ones here. And I was thinking about that watching action last night in the NHL. Like, gosh, that would be so awesome to be able to see guys like Sergachev, Boot, Simashev, Matvei Michkov, who plays for Philadelphia, wears number 39. He's a 20-year-old phenom. But there's a lot Sergei Bobrovsky from Florida. There's a lot of great Russian players that aren't involved, and I'm thinking, gosh, this is going to be so awesome. But if you added Russia to it with the players that they have, that even takes it to another level of competition for the U.S. and Canada to try and push ahead against.
Look, I understand why the Olympic Committee and why the international community feels like you need to do something like this. You need to sanction a country when there's conflict happening and whatnot. I get disappointed by it. I'm not trying to be political on the show. You guys know my policy on that, and it's probably an unfair question to ask. I don't know how political hockey guys are in general, right? Most of the time you talk to athletes about something and they're just like, dude, I just want to play my sport. I want to go home to my family, right? They have the same priorities that a lot of people have. And then like some sports, I heavily in the MMA world, like there's a lot of MMA guys that are like very political and opinionated about things. It's different when it's an individual sport like that is. There's boxers, there's some of those athletes in other sports that like, if you talk to them about this particular conflict, they're going to have a strong opinion one way or another. There were some MMA guys that got themselves into hot water for expressing their views on this situation. There was a couple guys who started waving a different flag when they were walking out to the ring for competition because of this specific conflict that Russia is being sanctioned for. In general, like if we grabbed all the Russian NHL guys and we're just like, tell me what you think about this, where do you think we'd net out? Are they political? Would they have strong opinions on it? Would they be like a lot of athletes are, where they're like, I'm going to stay in my lane here?
When the conflict with Ukraine and Russia started, I was in Tucson with the Roadrunners, Utah's current AHL affiliate, and our starting goalie, Ivan Prosvetov, who's currently with the Calgary Flames organization, was, next man up for Coyotes at the time, right? He's having a great season, and team's in first place, and we're rolling. And so this happens, right? And I grabbed him the next morning. I said, what's up, man? What do you think? How are you? He's like, I'm fine. I'm concerned because my family's in Russia.
Yeah.
But my focus is this. He's like, I'm a little shaken up. I'm a little upset that my country is at war, right? That's disconcerting.
Yeah.
He's like, but we're in first place. I'm the next call up. Like we're going. And you get news media reaching out. Like, could we talk to Prosvetov about the war in Russia? And I said, I appreciate you calling, but I've talked to Ivan, and it's obviously tough being here with his family back in Russia, and his country is at war, but we're in first place. He's the biggest reason for that. And if the Coyotes need a goalie tonight because Connor Ingram or Karel Vejmelka doesn't feel well, he's driving up to play, right? That's what he's focused on and driven on right now.
And I think that's probably how it is for most individuals. I mean, it's unfortunate because for the athletes to be the ones punished for decisions that they have no influence over, no power in these equations. It is unfortunate. Again, I understand why it has to happen on an international stage, and there's all that posturing and politic and whatnot. But then when you boil it down and you're talking to people, it's like, for the most part, athletes want to be able to play. They would love to be able to represent their country on an international stage. They'd love to be able to be part of an Olympics. And look, there's some of these guys are young enough that it'll roll around, conflicts will be resolved, and they'll have another opportunity. So, like, if Sergachev was going to be on the Olympic team this year, he's not exactly a spring chicken, so maybe the next roll around he won't be.
Yeah, you feel sorry for the players because you see the excitement from guys like Clayton Keller, players like J.J. Peterka that are able to go represent the country, Karel Vejmelka, Olli Mata doing it for a second time with Finland, and you know that it would be just as exciting of a situation for players like Sergachev, who's, in his 9th NHL season. He's 27 years old, but as you said, right? How many more opportunities are there? Is the NHL going to be involved in the next Olympics? This is the first time they've played in the Olympics since 2014. So yeah, definitely feel sorry for those guys, and feel sorry for hockey fans that would be such a great team to see, as you said, not looking at anything else in terms of the world conflicts, which is way over our heads, as you know. I'll speak for myself, but it's way over my head.
It's definitely above the pay grade. It's always great catching up with you. I think I'm going to see you at the game tonight.
Awesome.
Last of a homestand. It's going to be a little while before they're back. Might as well get out there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait to see it.
Between the Pipes with Adrian Denny, brought to you by our friends over at Aladdin Industries, your Utah Velux dealer. All right, up next, PBR Professional Bull Riders coming to the Delta Center February 6th and 7th. Cade Madsen is one of the young men who actually climbs onto the backs of these beasts, and he's a local. He's a Utahn. So we're going to talk to him about the PBR being on home soil. It's the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. In about 12 minutes, I'm going to have Five-Finger Death Punch tickets and PBR tickets to give away. PBR coming to the Delta Center February 6th and 7th. If you have not been in person at a professional bull riders event, I highly encourage you to do it. Even if you're not like a biggest rodeo fan, you're not the biggest bull riding fan, it's just one of those things that you have to be there in person. It's great on TV. It's even better when you're in the building. So we'll be giving away some tickets. You can also go find details on how to purchase them at ESPN700sports.com. And we're lucky enough to have one of the professional bull riders on the show with us here. Not just any bull rider, but a man with Utah connections, a Utahn himself, Cade Madsen, kind enough to join us. Cade, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you, sir?
Are you the only big-time rider from Honeyville, Utah?
My brother, he doesn't live in Honeyville anymore, but there's a couple other big names like Tim and Tyler Bingham. They grew up in Honeyville, so. But for now, yeah, I guess I'm the only one.
Well, we're lucky to have you on the show, like I said. And look, we talk about a lot of sports. We don't get to talk about bull riding very often. I'm a fan. I love it, especially in my college days. I watched a lot of PBR. That was probably before you were born. That was the Newberry days and the Adriano Marias days. But we talk all the time about other sports, how serving an LDS mission can be hard on the sport, right? Guys go on the mission and they come back and they got to get back in football shape. They got to put weight on or take weight off. Guys that are basketball players leave and they got to come back and get back in shape before they're good at being on the hardwood again. You served an LDS mission. How much did it take away from your riding?
It was definitely a process getting back into it. It was actually a little harder than I anticipated. You know, you come back after 2 years and there's muscles that you haven't worked in a long time. And so I was sore for a little while, but it's really been, kind of a fast track, which I consider a great blessing, to be able to ride at the top of my game just, it'll be 3 months tomorrow since I got home from my mission. So it was a little bit hard, but it's all been a blessing. So.
Okay, I mean, so forgive me for focusing on this, but people here in Salt Lake City, like this is a cultural phenomenon. The return missionary athlete. This is a thing that we're very, very familiar with, but again, not in the bull riding sense. 3 months removed, and you're already back on. I mean, professional bull, like this quality of bull. You're not easing your way back into this thing.
I eased my way back in as best as I could, but, like any sport, you never know, how ready you are until you actually just, put yourself in that situation. And I got on a lot of bulls in the practice pen at my house leading up to it. Yeah, it's been really good the last couple months.
What other sports did you play growing up?
I didn't play a whole lot of sports. I wrestled a little bit, but mainly, since I was a little kid, all I've ever done is rodeo. That's what's consumed most of my time. I come from a rodeo family, and so, every weekend, day in and day out, we were riding horses and stuff like that. So, a
real-life cowboy in Honeyville.
Yes, sir.
That's the coolest thing ever. Cade Madsen, professional bull riders. The Professional Bull Riders Tour is coming to Salt Lake City at the Delta Center. And, look, one of the cool things about PBR is you can be a fan of the rider, you can be a fan of the bull, you can be a fan of both, and sometimes you see your favorite rider on your favorite bull. Do you have a favorite bull? Do you have a bull that you're looking forward to riding? Do you have a bull that you dread riding? Like, what is your relationship with the animal athletes in the PBR?
They're just as much as athletes as us, and so it's always, you got to have a good bull underneath of you to win. And so right now I'm kind of trying to get used to all of them. All the bulls that were going, before my mission are most of them are retired, but, my favorite ones are the ones that I end up winning on. So.
Okay. So tell me, give me I'm sure this is an unfair question, but give me a sense. All right. When you're strapping onto a bull and they're about to open that chute, do you quiet your mind? Do you say a quick prayer? Are you counting in your own head? What is the mental process of trying to stay on for those 8 seconds, Cade?
For sure. The second right before the chute gate opens and the action actually takes place, I usually try to keep my mind pretty quiet. Most of the thought process, the preparation, those types of things, you do throughout the week. And then when you get there, you try to I personally just try to let muscle memory take over. So.
What's the hardest type of bull to ride? Because they come just like the athletes do, right? The bulls come with all these different physical profiles. You get these big old muscular, you get some of the leaner ones that spin, you get the big horns, you get the knobby heads. Is there a particular style that you match up with better or that you don't like or maybe that you do?
It always depends. Every guy rides, their riding style is just a little bit different, so they'll favor a bull's bucking style a little bit better than others. But in terms of the bulls, the ones that are always seem to be the hardest to get by are the ones that are fairly unpredictable. They do good at allowing us to be able to do a little bit of research on the bulls before we get on them, kind of see what their typical bucking styles like. But some of them, they're really smart. They're good athletes, and so they'll do something different just about every time. And so those ones are kind of hard to, counteract, make a game plan, I guess you would say, of, how you're going to get the job done. But
Kate, how do you how long before, hopping on a bull at the Delta Center do you know which bull that's going to be? How's the draw work?
So it'll be the Tuesday before they do the official draw, and so you'll know a couple days leading up to it. It gives you some time to do a little bit of research, maybe watch some videos on it, and come up with a game plan. So,
is that film study truly valuable for you? I mean, it's part of every other sport. The unpredictability of livestock and just the nature of how brutal this sport can be. I can't imagine it translates perfectly and directly every single time, but how valuable is it?
To me, it's pretty valuable. It always kind of depends on, different guys and what they like to do. Some of them don't like to know anything at all and just kind of react off of, feel. But for me, I do a little bit of studying just to know, if a bull has a trick that he does that gets a lot of guys on the ground. I usually like to know those types of things so that you can, make preparations, make a game plan of how you're going to, get through that so you can, make the 8 seconds.
Sorry, where did you serve your LDS mission, if you don't mind me asking?
I served in Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, wow. Cowboy sent to Nashville? That's a blessing and a curse because you're not too far away from stuff you'd like to be involved in, but you can't be involved while you're focused on the mission, I imagine.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Far enough away, but still close enough.
That's wild. All right, so how important is it for you that this is, it's the Delta Center. I imagine that, as a kid in Utah, you're very familiar with the important historic sporting events that have happened in this building, and now you get an opportunity to ride bulls there.
Yes, sir. All growing up, the PBR has come to Salt Lake City several times, and, it's back at the Delta Center. And so, being a little kid, sitting on the couch watching the PBR, it was always my dream to be able to not only go to the PBR in my home state, but to be able to win it. And so the months leading up to me coming home, Salt Lake City was like my official goal. I wanted to be back riding good enough to be able to ride at the Delta Center in Salt Lake City, and not just ride, but I plan on winning. So it's definitely a huge blessing, one that I'm really looking forward to.
Kate, how old were you when you first strapped on to like a big boy full-size bull?
I think I was 13 years old when I got on my first full-size bull.
How much did you weigh when you were 13 years old?
Probably maybe 100 pounds. I wasn't very big.
So every guy that I've ever talked to, myself included, just like, I would love to ride a bull just one time. I'd love to check that off the bucket list. Every man thinks they can do it, but you've actually done it, and now you've done it. Now it's your job. It's routine for you. Walk me through what it's like doing that the first time. How did you feel? What were you thinking? I know it's part of the culture you grew up in, and you were raised in a rodeo family, like you said, and you're familiar with the animals. But I imagine that the first time you strap in, especially at age 13, was probably pretty daunting.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's always just been kind of second nature to me. So I can't even remember, what it felt like, the first time or when I was 13 years old. But I tell you, when I come back from my mission, the first bull that I got on back, it was super unnatural. A lot of guys that'll get on their first ones before they get on, they typically, they'll go through the thought process, it can't be that hard. It looks a lot easier. But then once they actually do it and get on, they come back and it's like, yeah, that's a little harder than you think. And so coming back after 2 years, it was like, man, it was and mentally it was tough, but at the same time, physically, it's kind of an unnatural thing. So,
yeah, Kate, it is an unnatural thing to strap yourself to the top of a wild animal. Well, I guess not fully wild animal, but an animal that's going wild. That's pretty crazy stuff. You guys are absolutely insane. What's the worst injury you've ever sustained on a bull?
I've been very fortunate in my career. I haven't had too many serious injuries. I've pulled a couple groins, a couple broken bones, but I've been relatively lucky in my career. So, knock on wood, not too many injuries.
You definitely are a cowboy because you casually mention a couple broken bones and act like those aren't serious injuries. I like that. That's the cowboy mindset for sure. Well, look, I could pick your brain all day about this because I'm fascinated with it, and we're very, very excited to have PBR at the Delta Center. Thanks so much for joining us on the show today. Obviously, good luck not only at the Delta Center event, but every place that you strap on and ride. We'll hope and pray that you stay healthy and that you get those rides and you get your points and you win big.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Cade Madsen, a Utah boy who's going to be riding at the PBR event at the Delta Center, coming back off a mission 3 months ago and already strapping on to the PBR. So in his particular sport, that's coming off your mission and jumping back into an NBA game. In his particular sport, that's coming back off your mission, and 3 months later, you're standing in the batter's box with Kershaw throwing it at you. Cowboys are just different, man. It's awesome. So when you get out there, if you win the tickets that I'm going to give away in 5 minutes at 877-353-0700, and you hear Cade Madsen's name, give him a little pop. That's your Utah Cowboy riding at the Delta Center for the PBR event February 6th and 7th. Details on how to purchase tickets at ESPN700sports.com. Big thanks to Cade Madsen and PBR for making that interview happen. I loved watching PBR in my college days. It was like, I would go to practice. I'd come back. I'd throw one of my Totino's party pizzas because I couldn't afford real good food. I'd throw one of those in the oven, and we would turn on PBR, and we would turn on the Ultimate Fighter, that old UFC reality show, and that's what got us through practice days, spring practice days, watching those guys.
And you saw one of those things. You saw both of those things and said, I could probably do that once.
I saw both of those things and was like, I could do that, but then only one of them was a realistic thing.
Yeah.
I still do.
You've probably done the mechanical bull thing, right?
I've done mechanical bulls. I've never gotten on the back of a real bull. I've tried roping.
Yeah.
And I've done some steer wrestling, which is fun and awesome.
Mutton busting.
I've never done the mutton busting, but I think I passed. Like, there was a time in my life where, for sure, if I was given the opportunity, I would have strapped onto the back of a bull just to say that I had done it. I think those days are past.
Yeah.
I've got children now that depend on my health. I'm not in shape anymore.
Yeah. You ever seen 8 Seconds?
Yes.
The bull riding movie. One of my favorite movies growing up. One of my dad's favorite movies growing up. My dad wasn't really a cowboy. Grew up in Salt Lake Valley, but his grandpa, my great grandpa, had a ranch and a farm in northern Arizona, on the Arizona Strip. So he spent his summers there. So he felt like he was a little bit of a cowboy.
Yeah.
So he loved rodeo. He loved the movies like 8 Seconds. But if you've seen 8 Seconds, there's a particular injury he sustains in that movie. There's a few that he sustains, but there's a particular one where you're like, yeah, I'm a father now. I can't risk that.
Look, when you hear the announcers on PBR talk about injuries, right? It's weird because you don't focus on them. That was probably a faux pas for me to ask Cade Madsen about his worst injury. By the way,
maybe it was.
It's probably like I broke
he handled it well. We apologize, Cade, if you took that wrong way.
Well, you're probably not supposed to do that to a cowboy, especially when they got an event coming up. because
Yeah.
then they're, put subconsciously getting hurt into their mind or whatever. But everyone in the sport will talk about it's not if you're going to get hurt, it's when and how bad.
And how you handle it,
Because there's absolutely no shot you make it through even a season of riding bulls without getting hurt in a pretty serious way. It is a nasty sport, and it's a lot of fun to watch. So get out there to the Delta Center.
I love, by the way, just real quick, I shouted out the old Dixie Roundup Rodeo at the Sun Bowl in St. George.
Yeah.
Grew up going to that, the bull riding event, the highlight of every rodeo, right? The showcase event of every rodeo. That my favorite thing, seeing that in person, and then we would walk behind and watch the bulls getting corralled through the chutes and everything. Yeah. It's just so much fun. I haven't been to a PBR just bull riding event, but having gone to a lot of those rodeos growing up, it's so much fun. If you've not been to even a rodeo, a PBR event, it's worth checking out.
Rodeo culture is awesome. The events are awesome. The in-arena announcers are always just absolutely fantastic characters. The rodeo clowns, the bullfighters they're impressive athletes. Like, all of it is really, really neat. It's a nostalgic, very American thing. Although Brazilians are also very good.
Oh, yeah.
PBR's got a ton of Brazilian riders. Cow culture and ranching is big in Brazil as well. So, anyway, enough on the rodeo. But, wait, last thing. You'd be surprised at how docile some of these bulls are when there's nobody sitting on their back. Like,
interesting. I had no idea.
Not all of them, but like some of them you can walk up and pet them. They're just fine. They're not mad.
I would not dare to, but I will take your word for it.
They're just like, but they put the bull ropes on them, and then
they're athletes. They get in that mindset, and let's go.
They know what they're supposed to do when someone climbs on their back. They're weeded out through this process. The PBR bulls are the best in the world. And they weed them out through this process like, oh, that bull didn't buck off a 13-year-old. He's never going to see the PBR. You know what I mean? They find the most rank bulls, the nastiest ones, and they cultivate them up through these systems. It's a really neat culture. So I'll get off my soapbox now. We'll give away tickets to the PBR and close out the show with a little crosstalk next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 792.1 FM. Let's make today's question easy. 5-Finger Death Punch tickets and a pair of PBR tickets to go when they're in town for PBR at the Delta Center, February 6th and 7th. Big 12 schedule release today. Utah and BYU play in week number what? Easy. 877-353-0700. Spoiler alert, it's not rivalry week. Week number what is when the BYU-Utah game is going to be next football season. Sean O'Connell Show coming to a close here. The Drive with Spence Checketts is next. Crosstalk brought to you by Advanced Windows. Advanced Window Products offering $2,500 off 10 windows or more at 801-850-9100. Tell Nate Orchard, Jake Weber, and the crew over there that OC sent you. Spence Checketts in The Drive. How are you?
I'm well. We were just discussing off air things that you should not do as you age because they are dangerous. I heard your interview with the PBR guy. Good
Cade
job.
Madsen, yeah.
Good knowledge randomly. By the way, you
I
seriously,
wish I was a cowboy.
You shock me with the amount of knowledge you have about the most obscure things.
I know a very, very little about a lot. I don't have deep functional knowledge on almost anything, but I can BS with the best of them.
That makes you an excellent radio host. That's really the
whole
baseline.
job.
That's all you needed. But
Yeah.
but I'll be tuned in. I'm like, how does Sean know about bull riding? Why does Sean know about Harry Potter? And I mean, Renaissance man. It's on your profile.
Self-described.
But hey, you know somebody's got to say it out loud.
Yeah.
But bull riding, I think Porter has attempted it. I have never. And as we were discussing, now that we are you're in your early 40s, I have one more year to say that I'm in my mid 40s, and
Sure.
I have to lean into the late 40s. I think that ship has sailed. I don't think bull riding is in my future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there's like a bull equivalent of an old man who shouldn't be doing this anymore, I'll get on that bull maybe. Like the one that's only going to jump a couple of times and then just be like, never mind.
What about a mechanical bull at like a bar in West Hollywood?
There's just definitely not in West Hollywood. There's just not a way you can look cool doing that.
No, and there's no there's no upside.
There's no.
You're gonna get thrown off.
And if you don't, so what?
Yeah.
I rode that mechanical bull for 8 seconds. All right.
Congrats. Here's a
Congratulations.
free IPA. Yeah, like there's, and also isn't that reserved for like women to post on Instagram or something?
The bars that have mechanical bulls want sorority chicks to get on a mechanical bull.
Not men in their 40s.
Not 40-year-old men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Schedule release before I set you loose.
Uh-huh.
Is it? It's probably a little bit irresponsible and maybe a little bit hyperbolic to say Utah BYU. That game might be for a berth in the Big 12 championship.
Very well could be. If everything else goes to chalk and expectation,
Yeah.
the schedule lays out very calmly for Utah,
Yeah.
I think it is a good way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously there's a lot that needs to be answered with Morgan Scally taking over the program and whatnot.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you had this year's slate with all the roster turnover and losing half the coaching staff and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
we wouldn't be like, yeah, that's a 10-win season.
Right.
Next year, I'm looking at it, I'm going like, well, geez, there's 7 wins here that are kind of like close to guaranteed.
Yeah, you would hope so. I mean, so many. By the way, is Avery Johnson done at K-State?
He'll never be done at K-State. I don't know.
Yeah, like because I was going over the list. Cincinnati's replacing a quarterback. TCU's replacing a quarterback. Iowa State is replacing everybody. Tech is just reloading, and they'll be replacing a quarterback, but they're actually upgrading. But I think avoiding Tech and the Notre Dame game for BYU is going to be really tough. They have their quarterback back, the CJ Carr kid. Jeremiah Love comes back. But I think BYU could probably lose to Notre Dame and still get in as long as they handle their business against Utah. And Utah doesn't have that type of challenge on their schedule. The non-con's pretty easy. It's all in Salt Lake. I don't know, man. When I was reviewing the schedule for both Utah and BYU, I think it's pretty manageable and reasonable for both. I hate to beat the dead horse here, but I don't love the date of BYU Utah, but I think it is what it is moving forward. And I think BYU fans can put their conspiracy theory that Coach Witt was the one that was insisting that the BYU game was not the final game of the season. We can throw that out the window now. But, a day like today for a schedule release, it's kind of like Christmas morning for college football offseason because it opens your mind to a lot of possibilities. And obviously we're months away from, hell, we haven't had spring ball yet, but going over the schedule, there's an excellent chance that Utah-BYU game could be as consequential as any matchup in rivalry history.
First 4 games, win, probably win. Then a bye. Next game after the bye, Kansas at home. Win. Colorado on the road. Win. Then you got Houston at home. That's a tough game.
Yeah, Houston's not a bad team.
They've got some talent. They've got a lot of speed. Cincinnati on the road. I don't think I trust Cincinnati to be any good without Sorsby. He was the only thing that made them good.
Right.
And then you got BYU at home. So, based on my obviously accurate prediction here, we're talking about a Week 10 matchup where Utah is sitting at 8-1 at worst.
Yeah, and I think BYU is going to be sitting in the very same spot. And there's a good chance both teams are clean. And obviously Tech, avoiding Tech is huge. But the other dynamic that I think is going to be interesting, maybe you know more about this than I do. The Kalani Witt dynamic, it was almost like father-son, kind of like respectful a little bit. What the Kalani Morgan dynamic, Morgan said at his presser, that's my guy. We went through the fire together. I would imagine there's nothing but love between the two. Do you have any insight on that relationship at all?
To my knowledge, they're friends.
Yeah.
And friends from the same age bracket and friends from the same kind of I'm friendly with my dad's friend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like my uncle.
Yeah.
But we're not friends the way
Right.
that I'm friends with guys that are, even my older brother's age.
Mm-hmm.
They're peers.
Yeah.
Like Kalani and Witt were not peers. He helped you get into the business.
Right.
And even if you have reached the same level as him, there's a deference and things like that.
Yeah.
That's not part of the relationship between Morgan and Kalani, to my knowledge, but they get along. And that, by the way, is the best version of the rivalry where the fans hate each other
Mm-hmm.
and the head coaches love each other but want to kick the crap out of each other.
Yeah.
Every year.
Yeah, the other thing that I was thinking about and kind of debating a little bit, and it's probably just time to admit that the College Football Playoff Committee, or whoever the hell is going to be in charge of this thing moving forward, and obviously the tentacles of the SEC and the Big Ten are unavoidable and undeniable. They've just told us pretty early on over the past couple of years that the Big 12 is a one-bid league. Now, maybe they go to 16. We haven't heard anything because they can't decide anything. But if we operate off the premise that there will be no expansion, and I don't believe there's going to be this year, I think they're talking about the year after this as some sort of, but we'll see. Hell, I read that 3 players entered the transfer portal today. I thought it was closed. I don't know what the hell's going on. But if you're Utah, if you're BYU, Tech is out there, and that's the deal. If it's a one-bid league, the margin of error for our 2 in-state Big 12 teams, almost 0, which feels a little bit unfair. And look, it's January. To say it's a 2-bid league or a 1-bid league is impossible. But would you agree with the premise that the messaging that we received pretty early on in the season with the rankings is the Big 12 is clearly a 1-bid league?
The messaging was, we're going to put you in the rankings so you're inside the party until it actually matters.
Right.
So you feel like you're getting the invite. All right. The cute girl's going to ask you to homecoming, but then you're going to be standing there by yourself when it actually happens. But if we let you know that in week 7, then you won't be talking about it. You'll be already disenfranchised. You'll be sad and you'll lose interest. Instead, they dangle the carrot. It was masterful manipulation of the Utah fan base, the BYU fan base. They were just like, look, you're right there. You're right there. You're right there. No.
Yeah.
Only the winner of the conference championship.
Speaking of the cute girl inviting you to homecoming, I was going to sleep last night, and as I referenced, I told you I was going to do this. I continued to think about the fact that Fernando Mendoza just won the Heisman Trophy and a national championship, and he does not speak to girls.
You'll never be able to get over it.
I won't.
I'm going to turn it over to you. An update on the poll I put up based on an email I got and a text message I got, and I shared the tweet. Would you support a rebrand/rename of Real Salt Lake? 46% say no, 54% say yes.
Is that 10 votes? How many votes do you have on that? Do any soccer fans follow you?
Yeah, there's over 100 people.
100 people? No, we're not changing the name.
And we
how
have
about
21 hours left, and we should change the